Chapter 838, Meeting Kong Shi once more who? After the passing of an unknown amount of time, Zhang Xian heaved a sigh of relief, and a sharp glint flashed through his eyes. My soul depth has grown by 2.0. With the soul tempering of a mentor's calligraphy that he had just undergone, his soul depth had increased from 19.1 to 21.1. One of the prerequisites to taking the 7-star Master Teacher examination was to possess a soul depth of 21. In other words, in terms of soul depth, Zhang Xian was currently on par with a 7-star Master Teacher. For a 4-star Master Teacher to possess the soul depth comparable to a 7-star Master Teacher, this revelation could surely leave many shocked to death. The hardest aspect that had many Master Teachers stuck was not their cultivation or their supporting occupations but their soul depth. For it to have grown by 2.0 with just a single trip, he had not spent the previous few days in vain. All of a sudden, just as Zhang Xian was about to put away the scroll, a bright light suddenly flashed from it, and a scholarly young man dressed in a white robe suddenly appeared in the room. It was only an illusory figure formed of light, but the features of the young man were extremely distinct, just like a real person. To be able to avoid the pitfall of respect and find the flaws in my insight, you did well. The young man seemed to be in his early 20s. With a slight smile, he gazed at Zhang Xian in commendation. Taken aback, Zhang Xian widened his eyes. You are Kong Shi. The figure before him might be young, but he did bear a striking resemblance to the old man he had seen during his first acknowledgement of Celestial Master Teacher in Tianwu Kingdom. Most likely, the other party was Kong Shi in his youth. It was recorded in the books that Kong Shi had managed to become a 9-star Master Teacher before reaching his 30s. They were at the Saint Ascension platform, which was where Kong Shi had made a breakthrough to sainthood. The corresponding Master Teacher rank to his cultivation realm then would be 6-star, so making a rough estimation, the other party's age should indeed be around his early 20s too. My surname is indeed Kong. The young Kong Shi chuckled. I am nothing more than a sliver of will now, so I won't be able to maintain my state for too long. Since you were able to find the flaws in my insight and interpret my true intentions, it can only mean that our fate has intersected. The scroll in your hand contains the cultivation technique I used when achieving a breakthrough to sainthood. Study it well, perhaps it might be useful for your future cultivation. It contains your cultivation technique? Zhang Xian took a glance at the scroll. The content of the scroll was identical to what was inscribed on the cliff face, the only difference being that the scroll contained the personal handwriting of Kong Shi and harnessed his grand aura. Back outside, when Zhang Xian had taken in the words on the cliff face via the Library of Heaven's Path, he hadn't seen a cultivation technique in it. Had he not been sufficiently thorough in his study of it? It seemed he would have to look through it carefully when he had time. Also, these words harness my essence, breath, and spirit after I ascended to sainthood. Use it well, it will benefit you greatly. The young Kong Shi said with a smile, I will just end it here. After all, cultivation is an individual journey. Work hard, perhaps fate might bring us together once more in the future. After saying his piece, the illusory figure began to waver, seemingly ready to dissipate at any moment. Seeing that Kong Shi was about to disappear, how could Zhang Xian possibly waste any time? Pushing the matter regarding the book to the back of his mind, he quickly asked anxiously, wait a moment. I still have a question to ask. From an ancient record, I learned that you were plagued with the innate fetal poison in your earlier years. May I know how you cured it? He knew that Kong Shi had also suffered from the innate fetal poison from the ancient records, and this was a rare chance to ask the other party about the matter. He wasn't going to let this opportunity go so easily. You are also afflicted with the innate fetal poison? Hearing those words, the young Kong Shi was taken aback. That's right. Zhang Xian quickly replied. How can I solve the issue? Ha ha ha, I am not alone in my path. But instead of answering, the young Kong Shi's eyes gleamed in excitement as he laughed heartily. Finally, another person just like me. Good. Who? In the midst of his words, the young Kong Shi vanished, and his voice gradually faded in the room. A sliver of will left several dozen millenniums ago couldn't possibly maintain its existence for too long. It was already a blessing that it had lasted as long as it did. You. Zhang Xian was overwhelmed with frenzy. You haven't answered my question yet. Is that fellow really Kong Shi? Don't they say that Kong Shi had a heart that embraced the world, shouldering the responsibility for the welfare of the world on his shoulders, a good man through and through? But why was he so creepy instead? Hearing that I am afflicted with the innate fetal poison, it is one thing for him to not tell me the cure, but to get excited at that as well. What, you are not alone in your path, and that I am like you. Are you that glad to see another person as unfortunate as you? More importantly, good. Good your head. Zhang Xian's face was streaked with black lines. He had been thinking that it was a good opportunity to uncover the cure for the innate fetal poison through the sliver of will Kong Shi had left behind. But who knew that, not only did he not receive anything substantial, he ended up being laughed at instead. Forget it. The Kong Shi at this age probably hadn't found a solution yet either. Feeling extremely stifled inside, Zhang Xian consoled himself. Considering that the sliver of will had been left behind right after Kong Shi ascended to sainthood, he could only be a 6-star master teacher at best. Since he hadn't even cured his own innate fetal poison then, it wasn't surprising that he didn't have a solution to it yet. To find the cure, Zhang Xian would have to find a 9-star master teacher Kong Shi. Shaking his head, Zhang Xian tossed aside those frustrating thoughts and studied the scroll in his hand instead. The scroll was made of bamboo pieces weaved together. Despite being several dozen millenniums old, there wasn't the slightest wear and tear to it. Studying the words written on it closely, Zhang Xian realized that it wasn't written using ink but inscribed using a unique method, which made the words look more wholesome and dignified. If I study this calligraphy carefully and master it, I will be able to further my accomplishments in painting. Zhang Xian thought excitedly as he felt the pulsating power infused within the words. As the first master teacher, Kong Shi had been skilled in many occupations, and painting was one of them. Even though he was only a 6-star master teacher when he left those words, his comprehension of painting was already on par with 7-star or perhaps even 8-star painters. If Zhang Xian could examine and learn his calligraphy, it shouldn't be too difficult for him to advance his painting skills to 6-star or 7-star. As for the cultivation technique that Kong Shi had spoken of earlier, Zhang Xian was still unable to find anything about it at the moment. It seemed like he could only decipher it bit by bit to uncover the secret hidden within. Knowing that Luo Ruoxin was waiting for him, Zhang Xian was just about to place the scroll in his storage ring when he suddenly felt something. Looking around him and verifying that Luo Ruoxin was nowhere near, he took out a book from his robes. It was the Book of Heaven's Path that had Vicious sealed within. Previously, out of fear that he would be lynched for destroying the cliff face on the Saint Ascension platform, Zhang Xian had taken the book out from his storage ring in preparation for whatever would come at him. Zhang Xian flipped open the book and asked the heart, "What's wrong?" This fellow had been beating wildly, seemingly intent on saying something. That is Kong Shi's personal handwriting, his will is harnessed within it. Why don't you allow me to devour it? With it, I should be able to recover a fair bit of my strength and be of more help to you. Vicious said greedily. Don't even think about it. Without any hesitation, Zhang Xian flicked his finger at the heart in the book. That was Kong Shi's handwriting, an invaluable treasure. How could he possibly give it to Vicious to devour? You have already memorized his writing, so the scroll shouldn't mean anything. If I devour it, I will be able to convert my killing intent into a purer and more orthodox form. In fact, I should be able to imitate Kong Shi's aura as well and teach others a lesson in your stead. Under Zhang Xian's flick, Vicious spun around several times before eventually crashing to a stop. Unwilling to give up on such a precious opportunity to regain his strength, he hurriedly continued as soon as he recovered. In any case, I am suppressed by this book of yours, so you don't have to worry about me escaping your control. So, the more strength I recover, the safer you will be. Don't even dream about devouring this book. I will try to think of another way for you to recover your strength. Zhang Xian waved his hands before putting away both the scroll and the book decisively. It wasn't easy for him to receive Kong Shi's personal handwriting, so he couldn't allow that fellow to consume it. Besides, he had only obtained this due to Luo Ruoxin's help, so this artifact belonged not just to him but her as well. He would have to discuss with her to decide on how they would deal with the scroll. However, there was one thing that Vicious was right about. The stronger Vicious became, the safer he would be. Zhang Xian had faith in the prowess of the Book of Heaven's path, so he didn't need to worry about Vicious revolting against him. After all, no matter how powerful an existence was, could he possibly rise above the heavens? No matter what happened, Vicious would just have to listen to his words obediently. Forget it, I will think of a plan later on. Knowing that it was futile to think about all of that now, Zhang Xian shook his head and walked out of the straw cottage. The next moment, he saw the silhouette of a young lady standing in the field not too far away. For some reason, her figure looked forlorn. Noticing Zhang Xian's presence, the young lady turned around and asked with a smile, "How was it?" "I benefited greatly from it. What about you? Did you get what you came here for?" Zhang Xian asked in return. The other party had said that she had gone there to confirm her deductions. They had managed to find the exact location where Kong Shi ascended to sainthood, but as for whether she did succeed or not, "I did find some stuff, but..." "Forget it, let's not talk about it." Reluctant to speak any further, Luo Ruoxin shook her head and said, "It's good that you managed to undergo a soul tempering of a mentor's calligraphy. This trip hasn't been a waste for you." "Alright, I think we should get going now." "Yes, we should." Zhang Xian nodded slightly before he suddenly recalled the scroll and took it out from his storage ring. "Since we found this together, you are also a partial owner of it. How do you intend to deal with this?" Luo Ruoxin smiled. "You were the one who found this folded space, so naturally, it should go to you." Having thought over the matter after entering the folded space, she had realized that it probably hadn't been Zhang Xian's intention to destroy the cliff face. Instead, it was more likely that he had solved some kind of test that Kong Shi had left behind which resulted in the triggering of some kind of mechanism. Zhang Xian shook his head. "This won't do. We found this together, so how can I take it for myself?" If it wasn't for Luo Ruoxin bringing him here, he wouldn't have even known that the Saint Ascension platform existed, let alone come here. At the very least, he had managed to undergo a soul tempering of a mentor's calligraphy from this trip, but the other party hadn't gained anything. This left him feeling too guilty to take the scroll for himself. Seeing Zhang Xian's response, Luo Ruoxin chuckled softly. There is no one in this world who doesn't desire to obtain Kong Shi's personal handwriting, but here you are, trying to give it away to me. This wasn't some grass by the street but Kong Shi's personal handwriting. Even the sage clans would fight one another just to obtain it, and yet, that fellow seemed to think nothing of it at all. It was hard to tell whether he was truly a fool or not. "Alright, the scroll is of no use to me. If I really want it, I have the means to find more of those. Rest assured and keep it," Luo Ruoxin said. "No use to you?" Zhang Xian was taken aback. Even though he had no idea why such an invaluable artifact would be useless to Luo Ruoxin, her earnest attitude didn't seem like she was simply reassuring him for the sake of it. "I am not too sure about the details regarding sage clans, but perhaps, they have no lack of Kong Shi's handwriting." Zhang Xian came to a realization. Considering that the other party was likely from a sage clan, the Luo clan, and that such clans had millenniums of history, it wouldn't be too surprising if they had Kong Shi's personal handwriting in their treasure vaults. Besides, this writing had been left behind when Kong Shi had just ascended to sainthood, long before he had reached his peak. Perhaps it didn't hold that much allure to offspring of large clans like that. "I won't stand on ceremony then." Seeing that Luo Ruoxin truly didn't want it, Zhang Xian returned the scroll to his storage ring. Following which, he assessed the surroundings, and with a perplexed look, he asked, "How do we get out of a folded space?" Chapter 839, Return to Hongyuan City. Folded spaces are similar to formations. As long as one finds the door, one will be able to leave it easily, Luo Ruoxin said. Door? Zhang Xian looked around his surroundings. The area he was in wasn't too big, spanning only around several hundred meters. Anything beyond that seemed to be blocked off by some spatial barrier. No matter how he tried to pass it, he simply couldn't step past the boundary. It seems the exit should be somewhere in here then. Since it was impossible for him to pass the spatial barrier, the exit had to be somewhere within the area he could move in. Activating his eye of insight, he began observing his surroundings intently. Initially, he couldn't find anything, but a thought suddenly came to mind and he turned to the area where he had arrived, and after a moment of keen observation, he finally found a clue. He walked over to the area, and with a light step, a stone platform identical to the one he'd seen when entering this folded space gradually surfaced. That must be the exit. We should be able to leave by stepping on it. Luo Ruoxin smiled as she took the lead and stepped on the stone platform. With a slight flash, her figure disappeared from the spot. Wait a moment. Not expecting the other party to leave without the slightest hesitation, Zhang Xian's heart skipped a beat. Given that the Saint Ascension platform had just been destroyed, the master teachers outside would surely be armed with their pitchforks, hunting down the culprit behind the mess. If he were to leave, wouldn't he be pummeled to death? But since Luo Ruoxin had already left, he couldn't possibly leave her in the lurch. Deciding to just face whatever came his way, Zhang Xian stepped on the stone platform as well. Who? With a brilliant flash of light, the scenery changed. Blue sky and white clouds, accompanied with a light breeze, appeared before him, and a young lady stood not too far away from him. Zhang Xian took a look at his foreign surroundings and was taken aback. Where are we? From where he stood, he couldn't see the Saint Ascension platform anywhere. It didn't seem like they were in the area anymore. I am not too sure either. My guess is that Kong sure knew that the destruction of the Saint Ascension platform would cause a great deal of trouble to the one who solved his test, so he set the exit somewhere else, Luo Ruoxin said contemplatively. I see, that's a relief. Seeing that he was spared from the miserable fate of being lynched, Zhang Xian heaved a sigh of relief. At this point, he had already realized that as one who had received Kong Shi's acknowledgement, the other master teachers wouldn't do anything to him even if he was the culprit behind the destruction of the Saint Ascension platform. The true problem lay in the existence of the folded space hidden in the cliff face and Kong Shi's personal handwriting. If others were to learn that he carried such a treasure in his possession, others could potentially come after him out of greed. Master teachers were respected for their righteousness and morals, but it was nigh impossible for an organization as big as the Master Teacher Pavilion to accurately assess the character of each of its members. Without a doubt, there would be a few who would succumb to their greed and go after him. He didn't want to be assaulted day after day over a darn scroll. After checking the surroundings once more and confirming that he was a safe distance away from the Saint Ascension platform, Zhang Xian's tense heart finally calmed down. He called for the great violet wing beast to return to Hongyuan Master Teacher Academy, and while waiting, a thought suddenly popped into his mind. Flicking his wrist, a nest around the size of a football appeared in his palm. The myriad anthive queen emerged from the nest. Master! There is a folded space here. Are you able to put it into your nest? Zhang Xian asked. The myriad anthive nest's interior was only around 3 meters from one end to the other, and it had been completely packed with just a single Byzantium Helios beast inside. For a very long time, Zhang Xian had been looking for some way to expand the space inside the hive. What was before him at this very moment was a folded space of several 10,000 square meters. If there was some way to assimilate both of the spatial artifacts together, he would really be able to call forth an army of spirit beasts at a whim to decimate anyone who irked him. The myriad anthive queen took a look at the stone platform and climbed on it for a moment before returning to Zhang Xian with an excited gleam in its eyes. Master, I think I will be able to assimilate the folded space into the nest. However, the process will take some time. How long? Zhang Xian asked. Anything concerning space was filled with intricacies, and the myriad ant-hive queen was only a perfect harmonization realm spirit beast. Despite possessing an inborn talent for spatial manipulation, it still wasn't an easy feat for it to conduct an assimilation. I will require a minimum of 3 days to devour it completely, and several months to assimilate it into the nest, replied the myriad ant-hive queen. All right, I will give you 3 days then, Zhang Xian said. He could still afford to spare 3 days. Yes. Having earned its master's permission, the myriad ant-hive queen hurriedly stepped onto the stone platform and disappeared. On the other hand, seeing that he wouldn't even let the folded space Kong Shi had left behind go, Luo Ruoxin shook her head. Other master teachers would be worshipping anything that Kong Shi had left behind as sacred relics, not daring to desecrate it in the least. But this fellow, he actually intended on having his own tamed beast devour the folded space where Kong Shi had ascended to sainthood in. Really, just what was in his mind? After waiting patiently for 3 days, the duo finally saw the myriad ant-hive queen climb out of the folded space with a pale face. Its head had doubled in size, and there was an uncomfortable bulge in its stomach. After having it return into its nest to expand the space in it, Zhang Xian, along with Luo Ruoxin, leaped onto the back of the great violet wing beast before returning to the Master Teacher Academy. This trip to the Saint Ascension platform had been worthwhile. Through the soul tempering of a mentor's calligraphy, his soul depth had reached 21, comparable to a 7-star master teacher. He had also obtained Kong Shi's personal handwriting, and even though he had no idea what use it served, it must have some invaluable use to it considering how countless master teachers would fight over it. Last but not least, he had also found a way to expand the myriad ant-hive nest. Having devoured such a large folded space, the myriad ant-hive nest would surely expand to many times its original size once the myriad ant-hive queen successfully assimilated the folded space in it. By then, he would be able to house the Byzantium Helios beast, Great Violet Wing beast, his clone, and even his students in it. He wouldn't have to worry about bringing them around into inconvenient places anymore. Days flew by like the passing wind for a cultivator. Before long, 3 days had passed, and Hongyuan City came into sight. In this time, the myriad ant-hive nest had grown to be around a dozen meters wide, allowing even the massive great violet wing beast to enter without a problem. Zhang Xian hadn't been slacking off either. With the rise in his soul depth, his analytical capability had been enhanced, granting him a deeper insight to his cultivation technique, thus allowing him to cultivate faster than before. He had been intending to suppress his cultivation until he found the corresponding Heaven's Path divine art before making the breakthrough, but who could have known that in his sleep on the first day, he would subconsciously make the breakthrough to ethereal treading realm primary stage. That had left him feeling incredibly stifled within for the entire day. He had already resolved to refine his Jinqi well and build up a truly solid foundation for the further advancement of his cultivation, but it seemed like fate simply wouldn't allow it. Sigh. It sure is a huge problem when one achieves breakthroughs too easily. In any case, the breakthrough to ethereal treading realm had raised Zhang Xian's fighting prowess a significant amount. The strength he could tap into from his Jinqi cultivation increased from 14 million ding to 17 million ding. That was might on par with ethereal treading realm intermediate stage experts. Factoring in the 11 million ding from his soul cultivation and 8 million ding from his physical body, he harnessed a combined strength of 36 million ding, which was more than sufficient for him to destroy even a Chrysalis realm pinnacle expert in a single punch. Not too long after entering Hongyuan City, the Master Teacher Academy came into view. After arriving at the destination, Luo Ruoxin bade farewell and left, stepping on thin air. On the other hand, Zhang Xian had the Great Violet Wing Beast fly back to his manor. As soon as the Great Violet Wing Beast entered Hongyuan City, one of the elders of the apothecary school hurriedly rushed to Lu Feng's residence and reported to him. School head, Zhang Xian and Luo Shi are back. Slapping the table, Lu Feng stood up abruptly with a sharp glint in his eyes. He has returned. Good. He had thought that the fellow would return in a day or two, but who could have known that he would end up waiting for nearly 10 days? Unforgivable. Continue keeping tabs on him. Remember, don't let him get away by hook or by crook. Lu Feng instructed the elder before turning to the side. School head Chen and Dong Xian, let's head to the elder hall. All right. Chen Qingshuan and Dong Xian heaved a sigh of relief as they stood up. In order to ensure that the news didn't leak, they had been asked to remain there for the past 10 days as well. Since Zhang Xian had returned, their isolation was finally over. Not too long later, they arrived at a tightly sealed room located at the highest point of the Master Teacher Academy. The Elder Hall. This was where the 10 great master teachers, principal, and vice principals discussed important matters concerning the academy. Rarely were there any matters requiring all of the top brass of the Master Teacher Academy to gather together, so the doors of the Elder Hall were rarely opened. However, in just than half a month since the start of the semester that year, it had already opened twice. The first was regarding the disappearance of Senior Byzantium Helios, and the second was on a motion to expel Zhang Xian. Entering the room, they activated the formation inscribed in the room to ensure confidentiality before taking a seat and waiting. One by one, the remaining 8 school heads stepped into the room as well. School head Lu, what have you assembled all of us so anxiously for this time? School head Mo asked as soon as he stepped into the room. Indeed. If you are still hung up on the matter regarding Zhang Xian, I will have to ask you not to waste our time. Even though most of the students of the apothecary school have withdrawn from their lessons, I have personally made a trip to take a look at the situation after the previous conference, and over half of them have achieved a breakthrough in their pill forging proficiency. In other words, not only should Zhang Shi not be punished, our academy should even reward him for his contribution. Zhao Bingshu said. After that day, most of the school heads had conducted a private investigation of the matter concerning the apothecary school out of worry. Just as Lu Feng had said, most of the students of the apothecary school had withdrawn from their lessons. But despite that, it seemed like they had found a better teacher to further their studies. There was a significant rise in the overall pill forging proficiency of those ex-students. The vision of the academy was to groom generations of talents for mankind. Anyone, be it teacher or student, who could achieve this would be a meritorious member of the academy. Even if Zhang Xian's matter was reported to the headquarters, there was no one who would fault him for his deeds. Lu Feng waved his hands and spoke leisurely. Don't be hasty, I will start once Mu Shi and Pavilion Master Mo arrive. He might have suffered a checkmate at their hands the previous time, but he had come with concrete evidence in his hands this time around. Let us see how you can help Zhang Xian this time. Pavilion Master Mo. Why did you call him here? Wei Ranxue questioned. The other elders also frowned in displeasure. While the Hongyuan Master Teacher Academy and Hongyuan Master Teacher Pavilion were associated with one another, they were considered two different entities, and they rarely interfered in the matters of the other. The Elder Conference should have been something private to the academy, but Lu Feng, of his own accord, had decided to invite Pavilion Master Mo over. Don't you find it embarrassing to involve outsiders in our affairs? Are you inviting the Master Teacher Pavilion to have a good laugh at our own internal problems? You will know soon enough. Lu Feng spoke confidently with his head tilted upward. All of you who protected Zhang Xian the previous time around will learn what is truly embarrassing when you learn that he is an otherworldly demon. Seeing that Lu Feng was unwilling to reveal anything further, Zhao Bingshu, Mo Zhu, and the others traded doubtful glances. Jia. Jia. Not too long later, Mu Shi and Pavilion Master Mo Gaoyuan arrived as well. Mu Shi, Pavilion Master Mo. The school heads stood up and clasped their fists. After everyone settled down, Mu Shi asked with a wave of his hand, what is it this time? Mu Shi, This matter concerns both Senior Byzantium Helios and the safety of mankind, so we have to take all possible precautions to ensure that nothing we speak of here leaks out. Thus, before I begin, I beseech you to place an additional layer of protection around this room to prevent anyone from sending news out. Lu Feng stood up and bowed. You want me to place an additional layer of protection? Mu Shi frowned deeply. Zhao Bingshu's face darkened, and he bellowed furiously, Lu Feng, what do you mean by that? Are you suggesting that we will leak the news? The other school heads also narrowed their eyes in displeasure. They were the only ones in the room. Lu Feng was clearly guarding against them. On top of that, he even clearly said that he wanted to prevent anyone from sending news out. They were the 10 great master teachers, the school heads of the Master Teacher Academy. Did Lu Feng think that they would leak news regarding something as important as the safety of Senior Byzantium Helios and mankind to others? That was a clear attack on their integrity and honor. Lu Feng's gaze swept across the room as he spoke sharply. Well, I do know that I won't leak any news to outsiders, but I can't say the same for the others. This matter has huge implications, and there are a few among us who have been beguiled by that scoundrel. I am only doing this as a precaution. Chapter 840, Zhang Xian is my teacher. The hot-tempered Wei Ranshue's face darkened, and she bellowed furiously, beguiled? Who are you talking about? I will have to ask you to stop beating around the bush and get straight to the point. School head Imo harumphed coldly. She's right. We, the 10 great master teachers, have known each other for at least several centuries now, but for you to say such words. Are you suggesting that I will reveal important secrets to outsiders? Or are you accusing school head Xiao or school head Wei? Or perhaps, you think that you are the only trustworthy one here? It was clear that the other party was pointing fingers at them, so how could they possibly not fly into a rage? Calm down, you are acting as if I am talking about you. I don't think you should have anything to worry about unless you have intimate relations with the otherworldly demonic tribe. Lu Feng sneered coldly. What did you say? Unable to hold back her rage any longer, Wei Ranxue slammed her palm on the table forcefully and stood up. Her powerful aura as a Saint Realm expert gushed out as she roared, I dare you to say that again. Lu Feng, watch your mouth. We are all school heads of the Master Teacher Academy, members of the esteemed 10 great master teachers of Hengyuan Empire. Who are you saying has intimate relations with the otherworldly demonic tribe? Zhao Bingshu uttered menacingly with narrowed eyes. You will know who I am talking about very soon. Just that, I hope that you won't be too ashamed to raise your faces later on. Lu Feng harumphed in response. There's no need to wait, I have been wanting to try your great inarticulate palm for some time now. Make your move. With a roar, Wei Ranxue raised her hands and released her full might as a Saint Realm 1 Dan pinnacle cultivator unreservedly. Even though she specialized in Terpsichorean arts, her fighting prowess still wasn't something that one could underestimate. Before her blow even reached him, the sheer force of her offense already had the surrounding air compressed so tightly that it seemed it could burst at any moment. School head Wei's fighting prowess is far stronger than before. Feeling the incredible aura Wei Ranxue exuded, everyone was astonished. Having been together for the past several centuries, they had a clear understanding of how powerful each of the others were. Who would have thought that in just a few days of absence, Wei Ranxue would make a breakthrough in both her cultivation and her Terpsichorean arts? Each movement and gesture of hers seemed to draw one deeper into a trance. Since school head Wei wishes to try my great inarticulate palm, it would be impolite for me to reject your request. Harumphing coldly, Lu Feng raised his palm, and a massive palm print appeared in the air. The great inarticulate palm, a spirit pinnacle battle technique, Lu Feng's strongest technique. Come! Wei Ranxue raised her palm, and a surge of pure Jinqi shot forth from her hands. The room wasn't large, but having reached Saint Realm, they had already gained an astounding level of control over their strength, minimizing the power loss in their techniques to the surroundings. As such, they need not worry about harming others in the area or destroying the room. Humph. Facing Wei Ranshua's attack, Lu Feng sneered coldly. Not even bothering to stand up, he thrust his right hand forward, and the palm print floating in front of him flew forth to face Wei Ranshua's attack. Boom! As the palm print and the surge of Jinqi collided, Wei Ranshua's face paled, and she was forced to retreat several steps. At this turn of events, she couldn't help but widen her eyes in shock. Half. Spiritual perceptual realm? At St. Tu Dan's spiritual perception realm, a cultivator would be able to open their incipient eye and awaken their spiritual perception. Through the spiritual perception, one would be granted a further and clearer view of one's surroundings, allowing one to notice the crucial minor details that could determine the flow of a battle, thus enhancing one's fighting prowess by leaps and bounds. While Lu Feng hadn't exactly reached this realm, he wasn't too far from it anymore. No wonder. Zhao Bingxiu and the others narrowed their eyes in astonishment. That explained why Lu Feng dared to utter those arrogant words, not fearing that he would offend them. It turned out that he had achieved a breakthrough in his cultivation. Looks like you aren't that blind yet. Lu Feng harumphed coldly as an indomitable aura emanated from him. Who else wants to try my great inarticulate palm? The crowd fell silent. After all the years they had been together, they were well aware of the means that each of them possessed, so even in a duel, they would usually end in a draw. However, now that Lu Feng had reached half-spiritual perception realm, he was already a step ahead of them all, becoming the #1 expert of the Master Teacher Academy. Enough! You are all Master Teachers of the Academy, this is no reason for you to fight with one another. Mu Shi bellowed furiously. With a wave of his hands, his Jinqi shrouded the room. Using his unique technique, all forms of communication that could deliver information beyond the confines of the room, be it verbally or via communication jade tokens, were terminated. Alright, I have already set up a barrier. Say whatever you need to. Mu Shi said impassively. Reporting to Mu Shi, there is still another matter which I need your permission for. Looking at the shocked faces in the room, Mu Shi stood up and said authoritatively, for further precaution, I wish to invite the guardian saint artifact of our academy over, the Golden Origin Cauldron. Golden Origin Cauldron. The guardian saint artifact at the Master Teacher Pavilion bestowed to our academy? That is a real saint-tier artifact. It might only be a cauldron, but it possesses its own sentience and spirit. With the strength it wields, it could slay St. Tu Dan or even 3 Dan experts easily. Why would Lu Feng invite it to our Elder Conference? Back when the headquarters bestowed the Golden Origin Cauldron to us, it said that other than in times of emergency, we are not to use it. Could he have really found something crucial? The Golden Origin Cauldron was the final trump card of the Master Teacher Academy. Unless they were faced with an invasion by the otherworldly demonic tribe, they were not to use it. To invite it to their elder conference at this very moment. What was it for? The expressions of the elders turned grim. Do you know what the inviting the Golden Origin Cauldron means? Mu Shi asked with narrowed eyes. I do, but the matter which I am going to speak of has significant implications, and that man possesses unbelievable means. In order to prevent any mishap from occurring, it is imperative that we make sufficient preparations beforehand. Otherwise, I fear that even with all of us here, we still might not be a match for him. Lu Feng replied confidently. Based on what Dong Xian said, Zhang Xian had subordinated 20 Saint 1 Dan otherworldly demons, and he could emanate a powerful killing intent which could render even senior Byzantium Helios powerless. If they were to expose his identity, and the other party, cornered, were to retaliate, it wasn't certain whether they would be a match for him or not. If they couldn't subdue his rampage as soon as possible, the Master Teacher Academy would suffer heavy losses. The crowd glanced at one another, perplexed. Just what could it be that would require even their greatest trump card to be taken out? As long as you understand. Since you believe that the Master Teacher Academy is in such deep peril, let us invite the Golden Origin Cauldron over. Mu Shi nodded. Even though he had been sent to the academy by the headquarters to elect the next principal, he was ultimately still an outsider. He didn't wish to get too involved in the affairs of the academy. It was best for their internal matters to be resolved internally as well. Thank you, Mu Shi. Receiving Mu Shi's approval, Lu Feng clasped his fist before walking to the side of the room. He pressed his palm against the wall before saying, I am Lu Feng, the stand-in principal of the Master Teacher Academy. I would like to invite Senior Golden Origin Cauldron to our conference. Hong Long. Following which, the room began to shake, and, Jia. The walls suddenly parted, and a massive cauldron flew out. Pang! It landed at the very center of the room with a resounding reverberation. With a deep voice, it said, Don't you know that I am resting? What is the matter? Artifacts that had reached Saint Tier had already gained sentience and were capable of thinking just like humans. Lu Feng clasped his fist politely as he said, An otherworldly demonic tribe royalty has appeared in the academy. I beseech Senior to help us suppress him once he appears. Otherworldly demonic tribe royalty? Who? Hearing those words, all of those gathered in the room widened their eyes in astonishment. An otherworldly demonic tribe royalty had appeared in the academy. Mu Shi's face darkened as well. If there was truly such a fearsome existence around him, it was gross negligence on his part to not have noticed it. Taking a step back, even if he didn't notice it, surely she would have been able to. Otherworldly demonic tribe royalty. Are you certain? The Golden Origin Cauldron was taken aback by Lu Feng's revelation as well. I am absolutely certain. Lu Feng nodded confidently. All right. If an otherworldly demonic tribe really appears in the Master Teacher Academy just as you have said, I will make a move and subdue him. However, if I don't see him by the end of the day, for interrupting my sleep, don't blame me if I reduce you to ashes. The Golden Origin Cauldron harumphed. Senior, rest assured. I will surely bring him before you. Lu Feng smiled. All right. Since you have already brought even Senior Golden Origin Cauldron here, hurry up and tell us what is going on. Zhao Bingshu urged impatiently. Lu Feng glanced at Zhao Bingshu and smirked before turning his attention back to the crowd. Seems like someone is getting angsty. Don't you worry, I will begin right now. Allow me to introduce all of you, this is Dong Xian, a grade 5 student of our academy, the leader of Dong Xian faction, as well as a direct disciple who I have recently accepted. Alright, Dong Xian. Tell everyone the sight you saw 10 days ago. There is no need to worry, I am here. Yes. Dong Xian nodded grimly. Taking a deep breath, she took a step forward. She knew that this was as much a risk as an opportunity. Putting everything aside, her contribution in having uncovered a disguised otherworldly demonic tribe royalty would solidify her reputation as a master teacher, and many opportunities would come her way, allowing her to rise through the ranks. I am Dong Xian, a grade 5 student of the Master Teacher Academy and a 6-star low-tier master teacher. In my name as a master teacher, I vow that everything that I am about to say is accurate and true, devoid of the slightest falsehood. Stepping to the very center of the room, Dong Xian raised her palm and swore on her name as a master teacher. Seeing her action, the crowd nodded their heads grimly. If a master teacher were to act against their vow, their faith would collapse, resulting in the instability and perhaps even a complete ruination of their state of mind, not to mention the severe punishments the master teacher pavilion would impose on them. As such, there were very few master teachers who would dare to lie in a vow. 10 days ago, I visited a manor outside the academy and saw an aura ceiling formation. Out of curiosity, I remained in the area to observe it when I saw Senior Byzantium Helios breaking out of the formation and escaping from it. With a crisp voice, Dong Xian recounted what she had witnessed that day. The entire room was silent, and everyone's complexion was awful. This was especially so for school head Mo and the others. They were shaking their heads, unwilling to believe what they were hearing. Eventually, school head Jiang Qingqin couldn't take it any longer and stood up. You are saying that Zhang Laoshe ordered 20 subordinate otherworldly demons to pummel Senior Byzantium Helios? As the saying goes, the music at one's fingertips reflects one's inner self. He was privileged enough to have listened to Zhang Laoshe's playing, and from it, he could feel a pure and dignified vibe. How could a man who could evoke such a vibe from his music possibly be an otherworldly demon? Even if an otherworldly demonic tribe royalty could conceal their aura, they couldn't possibly disguise their state of mind as well. That's right. Dong Xian was slightly fearful at school head Jiang Qingqin's outburst, but she nodded affirmatively. Impossible. Zhang Laoshe is a noble and straightforward man, how could he possibly be an otherworldly demon? Utter nonsense. In any case, I don't believe your words. Jiang Qingqin flung his sleeves furiously as he turned his sharp gaze to Lu Feng. Lu Feng, are you making this up to exact vengeance on the humiliation Zhang Laoshe brought upon you? What did you call him? Zhang Laoshe? Lu Feng asked with a deep frown. It was already bizarre to see the usually impassive and composed school head Jiang flying into such an abrupt rage, but the term he used to address the other party. Zhang Shi and Zhang Laoshe, there was just a syllable of difference, but the meaning changed completely. The former was just a respectful manner to address a fellow master teacher, whereas the latter was how a student addressed their teacher. Indeed, I am Zhang Laoshe's student. You dare insult my teacher by accusing him of being an otherworldly demon. Do you think that I will just stand idly and allow you to fling mud on him like that? Jiang Qingqin bellowed furiously. Teacher! You are an esteemed school head, and yet you acknowledged a student as your teacher. Lu Feng nearly went mad. Is there something wrong with that fellow's head? I thought that you possess a transcendental view of the world. I even respected you for that. How in the world did you end up acknowledging Zhang Xian as your teacher in the blink of an eye? Are you out of your mind? Chapter 841, Byzantium Helios Beasts Breakthrough. This feeling resonated not only within Lu Feng but with the others in the room as well. Sure enough, there were several school heads among the group who were impressed by Zhang Xian's capability, but in view of their own standing, they had still held themselves back. School head Mo had tried to take him in as his direct disciple, Zhao Bingxiu had offered to take him in as his teacher's student, and even Wei Ranxue had only viewed him as a fellow peer that she could consult with. Yet, this fellow had actually gone beyond that and acknowledged him as his teacher. The standing of a teacher was inherently higher than a student's. Considering that we are all peers, if you have acknowledged him as your teacher, doesn't that mean that we are all his juniors? That's right. School head Jiang harumphed coldly. If this is the matter you wish to confer on today, I don't think there is any need for me to listen any further. After saying those words, he turned to the door to leave. That Lu Feng had painted such a grim picture, but in the end, he was just making use of this opportunity to insult his teacher and exact vengeance for the previous humiliation he had suffered. Since that was the case, there was no point in him remaining in this conference. Lu Feng's face darkened, and he bellowed furiously, "You can't leave." After all the measures he had taken to ensure absolute secrecy, if Jiang Qingqin were to leave to reveal the news to Zhang Xian, the latter could very well make preparations in advance and flee. Oh. Are you going to attack me if I insist on leaving? Jiang Qingqin's eyebrows shot up as he turned around to assess Lu Feng with a frosty gaze. That's right. No one shall leave until this matter is resolved. I won't go easy on anyone who attempts to do so. Lu Feng uttered coldly with eyes narrowed menacingly. Without any hesitation, he raised his palm and executed the great inarticulate palm once more. A massive palm print flew towards school head Jiang with astounding momentum. The strength of a half-spiritual perception realm expert complemented with a spirit pinnacle battle technique was nothing to scoff at. Under the immense force of the palm technique, the air was compressed to such a degree that a deafening sonic boom erupted, threatening to rupture one's ears. Others might fear you, but not me. Seeing that Lu Feng had truly launched an attack against him, Jiang Qingqin swiftly flicked his wrist, and a massive zither appeared before him, floating in the air quietly. With light and agile movements from his 10 fingers, a sharp melody pervaded the room. Ting-tang. Ting-tang. A torrent of sound waves gushed forward. Boom. As soon as the sound wave came into contact with the palm print, Lu Feng abruptly exerted more force to overcome the other party's sound wave in a single push. However, to his horror, even when he had exerted his full strength, he couldn't withstand the might of the sound wave at all. Under the onslaught of the music wave, his face reddened instantaneously as he was pushed back several steps, and blood spewed from his mouth. 7-star demonic tunist? Lu Feng widened his eyes in shock. The other party's cultivation might not be on par with his, but his comprehension of demonic tunes had reached 7-star. With his current fighting prowess, not even a Saint Tu Dan cultivator would necessarily be a match for him. In just a momentary clash, his soul had been already severely wounded. Indeed. Under teacher's guidance, I managed to achieve a breakthrough. Jiang Qingqin said proudly. If not for Zhang Laoshe, he might very well have been stuck at 6-star for his entire life. As such, how could he allow anyone to insult his teacher like that? Mu Shi. Lu Feng had thought that with his recent breakthrough, he would have been the #1 expert of the 10 great master teachers. He had never thought that he would be defeated by Jiang Qingqin in a single blow. Indignant, he could only turn to Mu Shi for help. Alright, let's end this here. School head Jiang, you calm down as well. Since Dong Xian has vowed on this matter in her name as a master teacher, this matter is indeed worth looking into. Mu Shi waved his hand and said, since things have already gotten to this point, why don't we invite Zhang Shi over to explain himself? If this truly is a misunderstanding, he will surely be able to come up with a logical explanation to convince us. Otherwise, if he truly is an otherworldly demon, we mustn't allow him to get away. Seeing that even Mu Shi had spoken up, Jiang Qingqin hesitated for a moment before returning to his seat. Alright, I will listen to Mu Shi's arrangements. However, I hope for Zhang Laoshe to be invited over in his capacity as a master teacher and not as a suspect. I don't want to see anyone doing anything disrespectful to my teacher. Fair enough. Mu Shi nodded. Even though Dong Xian had vowed on the matter using her name as a master teacher, it would be unfair to treat Zhang Xian as a criminal just based on her story alone. On top of that, Zhang Xian was an incredibly talented master teacher possessing the eye of insight as well. If they were to capture him and eventually find out that everything was just a misunderstanding, this could create a rift between him and the Master Teacher Academy. Besides, if the other party really was an otherworldly demon, if they were to send their forces out to apprehend him, he might notice that something was wrong and escape. That could potentially lead to a disaster. Alright then. I have no more objections. Jiang Qingqin relented. Lu Feng, you heard it. Dispatch someone to invite Zhang Xian over to have his testimony cross-examined with Dong Xian's. Let's hope that he can explain himself well, or else I will have him eliminated personally. Mu Shi said. Yes. Nodding, Lu Feng walked out of the Elder Hall to send his men to invite Zhang Xian over before returning back to his seat and waiting patiently. While a huge commotion was going on there, Zhang Xian had ridden the great violet-winged beast all the way to his manor and landed. As soon as he walked into the main hall, he was welcomed by the Byzantium Helios beast and Sun Chang. Master! At that very moment, the Byzantium Helios beast commanded an aura overflowing with vitality and power, reminiscent of a dragon. Over the past few days, it had grown many times stronger than before, and its eyes reflected a wise and composed gleam. You have achieved a breakthrough. Zhang Xian's eyes lit up. Saint Tu Dan's spiritual perception realm. While the strength growth one would experience from a breakthrough to this realm wasn't as exaggerated that when advancing from nascent saint to saint realm, it did induce an immense growth in one's fighting prowess. This was due to the awakening of one's spiritual perception. Through the spiritual perception, one could view one's surroundings with greater clarity than before. even the slightest movement wouldn't escape one's notice. This wasn't something that one's physical eye could possibly compare to. There were even many that said that Saint Tu Dan was the first step to comprehending the many secrets arts that saints wielded, and it was only after awakening one's incipient eye could one be considered a true saint. The Byzantium Helios beast nodded. That's right. From the beginning, it hadn't been far from making a breakthrough. Through assimilating the ancient ape's inner core, which shared many common properties with it, it had managed to find the impetus to overcome its bottleneck and reach Saint Tu Dan. Good. Zhang Xian flicked his wrist and passed a huge gourd over. This is Earth Vein Spirit Essence. You will find it useful in helping to reinforce your cultivation. It was not without reason that so many saint beasts in the Cloud Mist Ridge had guarded the Earth Vein Spirit Essence so tightly. It had exceptional effects on saint beasts. Thank you, Master. Uncorking the cap, the Byzantium Helios beast immediately felt the condensed spiritual energy harnessed within the gourd, and it shuddered in agitation. With his instincts, it could instantaneously tell that the spirit essence contained within the gourd was worth more than dozens of high-tier spirit stones. To hand something as valuable as that to it so easily, this reflected the deep trust that Zhang Xian had in it. Zhang Xian turned to Sun Chang and asked, Did anything happen while I was gone? Nothing much, just that. At which, Sun Chang frowned. Hu Yaoyao sent a message several days ago saying that our manor seems to be under surveillance. Under surveillance? Zhang Xian frowned. Hu Yaoyao was the leader of the bewitching devil faction, controlling a huge pack of experts. Since she had sent word of it, the news was likely to be authentic. Have you found out who those people are? I tried looking into the matter several times, but the other party was too strong. They managed to escape my detection each time. Sun Chang's face reddened in embarrassment. His current cultivation realm hadn't even reached consonant spirit realm yet. While his strength could be considered fairly powerful in a Tier 2 empire, it was still lacking in the capital of a Tier 1 empire like Hongyuan City. Master, I know of this matter. Those men keeping watch on the manor are the elders from the Master Teacher Academy. The Byzantium Helios beast said. Having achieved a breakthrough to spiritual perception realm, he could easily perceive the happenings in his surroundings. Sun Chang might not have been able to find those creeping around the manor, but there was no way they could have escaped the Byzantium Helios beast's notice. Elders of the Master Teacher Academy? Why are they keeping watch on me? Zhang Xian was bewildered. Even though he did cripple a couple of schools, wasn't sending the esteemed elders on the academy to keep tabs on him a little, no, way too excessive. When I achieved the breakthrough to Saint Tu Dan and awakened by spiritual perception, I happened to overhear their conversation, and it seems like, that lad, Lu Feng, intends to call for an elder conference to have you judged. I am not too sure about the details as well as they didn't say too much, but I think you should remain on your guard for the next few days, the Byzantium Helios beast said. Lu Feng wants to have me judged. Zhang Xian was astonished. After he had made his round in the apothecary school, Lu Feng had once assembled the 10 great master teachers to push forward a motion to have his master teacher license revoked, but his plan had fallen through eventually. School head Jiang had already told him of this matter when he was at the demonic Tunist school. Could that fellow be up to something again? But if he didn't succeed the first time, surely the second time would be nothing to worry about too. From the looks of it, I think they might have found some important evidence to use against you, the Byzantium Helios beast said. Based on what I heard, not only did they invite Pavilion Master Mo Gaoyuan over, they even called forth the Saint Tier artifact, Golden Origin Cauldron. The surveilling elders didn't seem to know too much of the matter either. Thus, even though the Byzantium Helios beast had been eavesdropping on their conversation, he only knew fragments of the story. Golden Origin Cauldron. That is the guardian saint artifact of the Master Teacher Academy. It is usually under the control of the principal, and it wields the power to destroy even Saint Realm 3 Dan experts. The Byzantium Helios beast frowned. However, after my master died, the golden origin cauldron fell into a deep sleep, and no one has been able to command it since then. This would likely remain the case unless an invasion of the otherworldly demonic tribe occurs. Hearing those words, Zhang Xian's eyebrows knitted together. If what the Byzantium Helios beast said was true, this was indeed a huge matter. But what did sending elders to surveil him have to do with an invasion of the otherworldly demonic tribe? Could it be that news regarding his otherworldly demon puppets and vicious had leaked? If that was the case, he was indeed in deep trouble. Putting aside how it would be ludicrous to most for a master teacher to have successfully taken in one of the top brass of the otherworldly demonic tribe as his subordinate, just the fact that he had so many otherworldly demon puppets in his possession was already something he couldn't possibly hope to explain well. Just as Zhang Xian was deep in thought, attempting to figure out what Lu Feng was up to, Zheng Yang suddenly rushed into the room. "Teacher." Zhang Xian turned to him and asked, "What's wrong?" "Teacher, Vice School Head Zhou and Vice School Head Wei from the Apothecary School are here. They said that they are here to invite you to the academy to discuss an important matter," Zheng Yang said. "Invite?" Zhang Xian's frown deepened. "How are their attitudes?" "Their attitudes? Amicable and polite, I guess. They are currently waiting in the guest lounge," Zheng Yang replied. In truth, he had also felt that something was off about this matter. After the mess that his teacher had caused at the apothecary school, the relationship between the two had been like fire and water, incapable of coexisting simultaneously. For the latter to suddenly pay their manner a visit and extend an invitation to the Master Teacher Academy, there was truly something bizarre about the situation. Their attitudes are amicable and polite. And yet, they still sent men to surveil me. Looks like they did manage to grasp hold of some kind of handle over me, and they are afraid that I might flee after learning of it. A sharp glint flashed through Zhang Xian's eyes. After sending elders to surveil him and calling forth the trump card of the Master Teacher Academy, they abruptly sent vice school heads to invite him over to the academy politely. Their incongruous actions hinted at treacherous currents hidden beneath the calm exterior. On top of that, he had come into contact with Lu Feng before. He was certain that the latter wasn't one who could let go of his grudges easily. Something was definitely amiss. After a moment of contemplation, Zhang Xian said, "Byzantium Helios, for the time being, I need you to get into the myriad anthive nest. I might require your presence later on." "Yes," the Byzantium Helios beast nodded before entering the myriad anthive nest. At this moment, the anthive nest was already more than a dozen meters wide, so while there wasn't sufficient space for him to move about, it was, at the very least, not cramped. After this was done, Zhang Xian was just about to head out to meet the vice school heads when he abruptly halted. He gestured for Sun Chang and Zheng Yang to head to the guest lounge, and after confirming that there was no one around, he brought his clone out and passed his storage ring to him. Vicious and the newly acquired scroll containing Kong Shi's personal handwriting were in the storage ring. Wherever the otherworldly demonic tribe was concerned, master teachers would tend to act by the adage, "Better safe than sorry." On the off chance that he found himself cornered, it would be better to leave a hand. His clone and he shared the same soul, so as long as his clone wasn't kept in the storage ring, they could communicate remotely with one another. Chapter 842, Byzantium Lad, Explain It to Them. In the guest lounge, Vice School Head Zhou and Vice School Head Wei were conversing with one another via Jinshi telepathy. "Do you think that he will try to escape?" While the duo wasn't too sure what was going on either, the fact that the school head had had Zhang Xian's manor surveilled for the past few days meant that he was going to make his move on Zhang Xian. "If he refuses to come with us or attempts to escape, we will just have to act as the school head commands and eliminate him." Vice School Head Wei replied grimly. "But if we really do so, there is no way School Head Imo, School Head Zhao, and the others will let this matter rest easily." Vice School Head Zhou said worriedly. When they first heard the order, they were nearly scared out of their wits. Considering the prestige that Zhang Xian wielded among the student populace, as well as his relationship with the various school heads, if he were to be killed, the apothecary school would fall into deep trouble. I am also worried, but there is no way around it. This is a direct command from the school head, we can't disobey it. Don't worry, he must have his own reasons for giving such a command, Vice School Head Wei replied. Lu Feng wasn't a reckless person, so he must have understood the implications of the order, too. There had to be a good reason for him to make such a command despite that. As subordinates, they would just have to do as they were told. You are right, there is no point thinking about it too much. We should just do as we were told. Vice School Head Zhou nodded. At that moment, a young man suddenly appeared by the doorway. Stepping into the room, Zhang Xian clasped his fist and greeted them. Vice School Head Zhou, Vice School Head Wei. He had met Zhou Qing during the academy's student recruitment period. He was the elder who had helped Luo Ruoxin tidy up the podium for her public lecture. Vice School Head Zhou stood up and said, Zhang Shi. We are here to invite you to the academy so as to discuss a matter. Seeing that Zhang Xian had not opted to flee, the duo subconsciously heaved a sigh of relief. Can you tell me what the matter is regarding? Zhang Xian asked. I am not too sure about the details either. However, this matter seems to be of grave importance, so I will have to ask Zhang Shi to not turn us down, Vice School Head Zhou said with a bitter smile. Zhang Xian pondered for a moment before nodding. I see. All right then, lead the way. With all the preparations Lu Feng had made, surveilling his manner and calling forth the golden origin cauldron, there was no way he was going to let Zhang Xian escape easily. Since it was impossible to avoid it, there was no point in delaying the inevitable. Yes, this way please. Seeing how Zhang Xian agreed to it readily, Vice School Head Zhou hurriedly gestured forward, as if fearing that the other party would change his mind. Zhang Xian's manor wasn't too far away from the Master Teacher Academy. Under the lead of the two vice school heads, it didn't take too long before they arrived at the Elder Hall. Pushing the door open, Zhang Xian walked in. The first thing he noticed upon stepping into the Elder Hall was the ancient aura that permeated the room. The Elder Hall had been around ever since the establishment of the Hongyuan Master Teacher Academy, and it had been several millenniums since then. The design and the architecture of the room formed a stark contrast with the rest of the Master Teacher Academy, leaving one feeling as if one had stepped into the past. Gazing around the room, Zhang Xian saw the 10 great Master Teachers and Pavilion Master Emo seated around, and a massive cauldron stood at the center of the room. Mu Shi. Suddenly, Zhang Xian caught sight of a familiar figure. It was the man who had acknowledged him as his grand teacher, Mu Yuan. Why would that fellow be in the academy as well? But despite Zhang Xian's surprise, he didn't allow his etiquette to fall short. He clasped his fist and greeted school head Mo and the others, but upon reaching Lu Feng, he placed his hands behind his back and said, Junior, what are you waiting for? Aren't you going to pay your respects to me? Since Lu Feng was trying to do him in, there was no need to show any courtesy to him. You. Hearing those words, Lu Feng nearly choked on his anger. Was that fellow really that brave, or was it plain naivety? It was such a solemn setting, did he really not feel the slightest bit of fear? Lu Feng narrowed his eyes and flicked his wrist. Jia, the door closed, and a formation seemed to have started operating within the room, leaving the air slightly heavy. With the doors closed, Lu Feng glared at Zhang Xian with killing intent reflected in his eyes. Zhang Xian, your identity has already been exposed. If you plead guilty, we might still consider sparing you. Otherwise, not only will you be killed, those who are related to you will be implicated as well. Zhang Xian frowned, seemingly confused by what Lu Feng had said. My identity has been exposed. Still feigning ignorance? Dong Xian, tell him. Lu Feng sneered coldly as he gestured Dong Xian forward. Yes. Dong Xian nodded. Zhang Xian, I saw with my own eyes how you used a formation to confine Senior Byzantium Helios, and after the latter broke out, you had 20 of your otherworldly demon subordinates pummel him. You saw with your own eyes? Zhang Xian was momentarily stunned. 10 days ago, when he was teaching the Byzantium Helios beast a lesson, the latter managed to escape due to the formation being too weak. Could that lady have been hiding in his manor at that time? It seemed the formations that King Huai had prepared for the manor weren't reliable after all. He would have to work on them when he returned later on. Otherwise, if others could enter and leave his manor as they pleased, it could pose as a potential source of trouble. That's right. I swear on my name as a master teacher that I saw you command your subordinates to assault Senior Byzantium Helios. From start to end, you said a total of 3 sentences, the first one being, trying to escape. Vicious, take it down, followed by, the rest of you, get him. Pummel him to death, and finally, when Senior Byzantium Helios passed out, you said, it fainted again. Is there any mistake with what I said? Dong Xan asked. She would never forget what she had seen that day. The viciousness that the young man before her had shown had been imprinted deep in her mind. You do have a good memory. Seeing how the other party was able to recount what happened that day perfectly, Zhang Xian scratched his head awkwardly. Unaware of the Byzantium Helios beast's true identity then, he had thought that it was a crony of the otherworldly demonic tribe. Naturally, he wouldn't show any mercy to it. He is admitting to it. Realizing that Zhang Xian wasn't denying the matter, everyone was flabbergasted. If he had truly commanded otherworldly demons to pummel Senior Byzantium Helios, was he really from the otherworldly demonic tribe then? Unable to believe what he had just heard, school head Imo stood up and asked in agitation, Zhang Shi, did you really assault Senior Byzantium Helios? He was the first one to notice that Senior Byzantium Helios had gone missing, kidnapped by more than a dozen otherworldly demons as deduced from the traces left behind. The Master Teacher Academy had devoted its manpower to searching for it for half a month now, but there were no signs of him anywhere. He had contemplated many possibilities, but never could he have imagined that Zhang Xian would be the culprit. I did order my men to pummel it before, Zhang Xian confessed. It's good that you have admitted to it. Seeing that Zhang Xian had confessed to the matter, Lu Feng was taken aback for a moment, not expecting everything to go so smoothly, before a sharp glint flashed across his eyes. He hurriedly turned around and said righteously, Mu Shi and Senior Golden Origin Cauldron, Zhang Xian has already admitted to his identity as an otherworldly demon. I ask of you to have him killed so that no other human will be harmed by him. With a deep frown, Mu Shi turned to Zhang Xian and questioned authoritatively, Zhang Xian, what else do you have to say for yourself? If Zhang Xian truly turned out to be an otherworldly demon, then regardless of the other party's close ties with Luo Shi, he would have to fulfill his responsibilities as a master teacher and eliminate the other party. Seeing Lu Feng eagerly pinning such a huge crime on him, Zhang Xian rolled his eyes. Wait a moment. When did I admit to being an otherworldly demon? Why? Are you going to start denying the matter now? Justice will eventually fall on all evildoers, you won't be getting out of this no matter how well you argue your case. Since you have already admitted to assaulting Senior Byzantium Helios, what else can you be if not an otherworldly demon? Lu Feng sneered. I did order my men to pummel the Byzantium Helios beast before, but how does that prove that I am an otherworldly demon? Zhang Xian shook his head. There is no one in this academy who doesn't know that Senior Byzantium Helios is the tamed beast of the old principle. Assaulting him is equivalent to insulting our entire Master Teacher Academy, insulting us Master Teachers. Lu Feng bellowed authoritatively. Insulting the Master Teacher Academy and Master Teachers? Your imagination sure is wild. Zhang Xian shrugged helplessly. If that is really what you think, there is nothing that I can say. I can only have the Byzantium Helios beast explain the matter to you then. Saying those words, Zhang Xian flicked his wrist, and the football-like myriad ant hive nest appeared in the room. The nest jolted for an instant, and the massive figure of the Byzantium Helios beast abruptly emerged from it. It is Senior Byzantium Helios. Senior Byzantium Helios isn't injured at all. Upon seeing the Byzantium Helios beast appearing before their eyes, everyone was stunned for an instant before doubts began filling their minds. Not only was Senior Byzantium Helios not weakened from his injuries, as they had thought he would be, he was even overflowing with vitality and power. In fact, it seemed like he was even stronger than before. Wasn't he pummeled to the state of near death? What was going on? Gazes swiftly turned to Dong Xian, waiting for her to explain the matter. Feeling the intent gazes on her, Dong Xian's face paled. She could hardly believe what she was seeing as well. She had personally witnessed the saint beast writhing on the floor in pain and passing out. But not only was Senior Byzantium Helios completely fine, he had even grown stronger. More importantly, when she first met the latter, he had been trying to escape from Zhang Xian. Yet, at this very moment, he was standing motionlessly, seemingly devoid of any hostility for Zhang Xian. She wasn't the only one who went pale at this situation. Lu Feng also felt an ominous premonition when he saw Senior Byzantium Helios appearing before him, and his entire body stiffened. Just as he was about to speak, the young man before him beat him to it. Byzantium lad, Junior Lu Feng over here claims that I am an otherworldly demon because I had my men pummel you. Explain this matter to everyone for me. Byzantium lad? Hearing how Zhang Xian addressed Senior Byzantium Helios, the crowd nearly spurted a mouthful of blood. School head Mo's eyes swam around the place in frenzy. Everyone in the room respectfully addresses him as senior, but you actually cut all formalities and even called him a lad. Aren't you afraid of him killing you with a slap? He was a beast tamer, so he understood just how proud Senior Byzantium Helios was. Even he had to treat the other party with the utmost respect, not daring to even speak loudly. To address Senior Byzantium Helios in such a disrespectful manner. Aren't you pushing it too far? But before they could recover from their shock, the esteemed Senior Byzantium Helios clasped his fist and bowed right before their eyes. Yes, Master. Master. Senior Byzantium Helios is addressing Zhang Shi as his master. Lu Feng felt the world before him turning dark, and the other 9 master teachers also swayed weakly, feeling as if their perception of the world had been completely shattered. Who was Byzantium Helios beast? The tamed beast of the old principle, possessing a standing even higher than the 10 great master teachers of the Hongyuan Master Teacher Academy, second to only the Golden Origin Cauldron. With such standing, it was inevitable that his pride would be so large that it could reach the clouds. Master is a seal, a master teacher recognized by the Master Teacher Pavilion, so how could he be an otherworldly demon? That is utter nonsense. The reason he had someone beat me up was to help me achieve a breakthrough in my cultivation. Paying no heed to everyone's shock, the Byzantium Helios beast drove its cultivation, and an overwhelmingly powerful aura gushed out from its body. Hong Long. Under that immense pressure, everyone's souls jolted in astonishment. The Byzantium Helios beast had been thinking about how it should address this matter for a while now. If he were to say that it was pummeled due to a misunderstanding, he could very well shatter his image as an esteemed elder of the Master Teacher Academy. If that was going to be the case, he might as well claim that the other party was helping him achieve a breakthrough. In any case, he did manage to achieve a breakthrough to Saint Tu Dan. Saint Tu Dan. Spiritual Perception Realm. Senior Byzantium Helios managed to achieve a breakthrough. Everyone was stunned once more. It was extremely hard for natural-born saint beasts like the Byzantium Helios beast to achieve a breakthrough in their cultivation. This was the reason why, despite the years it had spent with the old principle, it had remained trapped at Saint One Dan Pinnacle, unable to overcome its bottleneck. Yet, in just half a month of absence, it had managed to take the final step forward and reached Saint Tu Dan. It was just a moment ago that they had thought that Zhang Xian was an otherworldly demon because he had assaulted Senior Byzantium Helios. But just shortly after that, Senior Byzantium Helios had personally stepped forward and revealed that Zhang Xian was his master and even displayed his newfound strength. This turnaround was so swift that they could hardly keep up. Chapter 843, Who is your teacher? Indeed. The reason I didn't contact you all is because I was at a crucial moment in my breakthrough, so I was unable to divert my attention, the Byzantium Helios beast said. If not for my master, I could have been trapped at St. One Dan Pinnacle for my entire life. What it was saying was the truth. For nearly 20 days, when it wasn't being pummeled, it would be tightly squashed within the narrow space of the myriad ant-hive nest, where it couldn't even stretch its limbs. This had led to an immense frustration and rage bubbling within it, but coincidentally, that had formed the foundation of its breakthrough as well. Spiritual perception realm was closely tied to one's soul and state of mind. As indignant as it was at the suffering it had been put through, it had to admit that the experience had tempered its mental resilience. If not for this experience, even with the inner core of the ancient ape, it was questionable whether the Byzantium Helios beast would have been able to achieve a breakthrough or not. Hearing those words, the crowd fell silent. It wasn't uncommon for cultivators to go into seclusion for several months or even years at once. Going into seclusion for half a month was indeed not much. Realizing that the tables had turned, Zhao Bingxiu was the first to counterattack. As the tamed beast of our old principal, Senior Byzantium Helios has contributed greatly to our academy. I believe I don't have to say this, but Zhang Shi has really done our academy a great favor this time around. Yet, despite all he has done, you accused him of being an otherworldly demon. Lu Feng, if you don't explain yourself well today, I will make sure you are charged for aspersion even if I have to bring this matter all the way up to Qingyuan Empire. You said that Zhang Shi had pummeled Senior Byzantium Helios and thus was an otherworldly demon, but now, even the victim has stepped forward to clarify the matter. What else do you have to say? Hearing those words, Lu Feng's face warped in savagery, and veins began popping up at his temple. He felt so stifled within that he could puke blood. He had thought that with this intelligence, he would be able to have Zhang Xian begging him for mercy. Who could have known that the situation would end up turning on him instead? Standing by the side, Dong Xian, who had been watching the entire scene throughout, trembled uncontrollably as well. If she could, she would have loved to disappear that very moment. She had seen with her own eyes how Zhang Xian had viciously ordered his subordinates to pummel Senior Byzantium Helios. How did it turn into helping the other party achieve a breakthrough in the blink of an eye? Where in the world could one find a person pummeling another to the point of near death to help him achieve a breakthrough? In that instant, a thought suddenly emerged in Dong Xian's mind. Wait a moment. Could it be? She immediately clasped her fist and said, Mu Shi, Senior Golden Origin Cauldron, and school heads, I have a hypothesis in mind, but I am not sure if it will be appropriate for me to speak of it. Feel free to speak. Mu Shi nodded. I am certain that I saw Zhang Xian ordering his subordinates to pummel Senior Byzantium Helios, but at this moment, Senior Byzantium Helios is speaking in his stead. I find that there is something really unnatural about this situation. Thus, I am thinking, could it be possible that Senior Byzantium Helios is being threatened? Maybe there is something he is unable to tell us about, or perhaps, the very reason for the pummeling might have been to make Senior Byzantium Helios submit. Dong Xian said. She knew what she had seen, and she was certain that there had been tension and hostility between Zhang Xian and Senior Byzantium Helios back then. Yet, all of this had disappeared all of a sudden, and the latter had even acknowledged Zhang Xian as its master. Had it been anyone else, they wouldn't have been able to believe it either. For one's attitude to change that quickly, there could only be one possibility: he was being blackmailed. You mean that he is being coerced into saying those words? Mu Shi frowned. The other school heads fell into deep contemplation upon hearing those words, too. Such a situation had indeed happened before. Even if Zhang Xian was a disguised otherworldly demon, he had spent some time as a master teacher, so it wouldn't be too surprising for him to be capable of spinning lies that could convince even them. Indeed. Everyone knows that Senior Byzantium Helios is deeply loyal to the old principal. So far, we don't even know whether the old principal is alive or dead, and for Senior Byzantium Helios to acknowledge another man as his master under such uncertain circumstances. I find that hard to believe. Lu Feng's eyes lit up upon hearing Dong Xian's words, and he immediately leaped at the opportunity to build on it. It was true that the old principal had gone missing on an expedition in an ancient domain, but until his corpse was found, it was impossible to conclusively tell whether he was alive or dead. Considering the loyalty Byzantium Helios beast had for the old principal, to acknowledge another man as its master while its old master could still be alive, there was indeed something really suspicious about the situation. Chen Chengshuan stood up and said, "Could it be that Zhang Xian possesses some news regarding the old principal, and he is using it to threaten Senior Byzantium Helios into acknowledging him as his master and speak on his behalf? Or perhaps, if he is truly an otherworldly demonic tribe royal, he could very well be using some kind of special means unknown to us." He was on the same boat as Lu Feng. Sink or swim, their fates were already closely tied together. Hearing those words, Mu Shi had no choice but to rethink the matter. If his old friend was truly alive, and Zhang Xian was using this piece of news to coerce the Byzantium Helios beast into doing his bidding, given the loyalty of the latter, it was indeed highly likely that the latter would speak on Zhang Xian's behalf. Until we can confirm whether Senior Byzantium Helios has been coerced or not, I think we should invalidate his testimony on the grounds of reliability. Lu Feng said. "You. Audacious." Not expecting that someone would use this kind of ridiculous theory to cast suspicion on his words, the Byzantium Helios beast's face turned scarlet, and he bellowed furiously, "Every single word of mine comes straight from my heart, how is it unreliable? Senior Byzantium Helios, please calm down. The otherworldly demons specialize in beguiling the heart, so until we can ascertain that you were not subjected to such means, it is difficult for us to determine the authenticity of your words. We have to ask for your understanding on this matter." Lu Feng said. Before they had been eradicated, the soul oracles had once sided with the otherworldly demons. From them, the otherworldly demons had learned some techniques relating to the manipulation of the soul as well. Even if Dong Xian's testimony was unreliable and Zhang Xian had truly helped the Byzantium Helios beast achieve a breakthrough, it was still hard to believe that someone as loyal as the Byzantium Helios beast would abandon its possibly still living master and acknowledge a man whom it had barely known for half a month as its master. At this point, Pavilion Master Mo, who had been watching the scene silently all this while, suddenly spoke up. "School head Lu, if we start delving into such conspiracy theories, can I also claim that you have been beguiled by the otherworldly demonic tribe into plotting against a talented master teacher who possesses the Eye of Insight?" School head Mo harumphed in agreement as he stroked his beard. "Indeed. All of us are more than aware of the significance of a master teacher possessing the Eye of Insight to mankind, and yet, School head Lu has intentionally acted against Zhang Xian time and time again. Could it be possible that you are an otherworldly demon in disguise? Sure, you might have cast suspicion on Senior Byzantium Helios's words. But how credible are your words compared to his? You. Not expecting that the duo to counterattack from such an angle, even pinning such a huge crime on him, Lu Feng nearly spurted blood. Left with no choice, he could only wave his hands and relent. Fine. We will get nowhere with that, so let us put that aside for the moment. Even if Senior Byzantium Helios's testimony holds, surely the matter of Zhang Xian having otherworldly demons subordinated to him is a fact that cannot be disputed. We visited Leiyuan Peak, the place where Senior Byzantium Helios was last seen before his disappearance, and I believe we can all agree that the lingering aura and remaining traces there belonged to otherworldly demons. According to Dong Xian's description, not only did Zhang Xian assault Senior Byzantium Helios, he had an army of otherworldly demon subordinates as well. That was also the most crucial point to proving that Zhang Xian was an otherworldly demon. Furthermore, since all of the school heads had visited Leiyuan Peak to investigate the Senior Byzantium Helios's kidnapping, they wouldn't be able to refute this point. And as expected, school head Imo, school head Zhao, and the others all fell silent. Given Zhang Xian's current cultivation realm, there was no way he could be Senior Byzantium Helios's match without any external help. Furthermore, Zhang Xian had also acknowledged that he had ordered his men to pummel Senior Byzantium Helios. Could he really have otherworldly demons as his subordinates? If that was really the case, that would complicate matters. Master teachers were banned from coming into close contact with otherworldly demons, and most would often refrain from doing so as well in order to avoid suspicion. Otherworldly demon subordinates. Do you mean this? Knowing that this matter would become a permanent stain on his record if he failed to explain himself well today, he flicked his wrist, and an otherworldly demon puppet appeared before him. I believe that with everyone's eye of discernment, you should be able to tell that this is a puppet forged out of the body of an otherworldly demon. Zhang Xian said. Indeed. This is a puppet forged out of an otherworldly demon. The crowd examined the puppet before them for a moment before nodding in agreement. All of those gathered there were 6-star pinnacle master teachers, and unlike Dong Xian, who had only seen the puppets from afar, they were examining it in close proximity as well. Whether it was a puppet or a real otherworldly demon, they were more than capable of differentiating. As school head Zhao will know, before enrolling at the academy, I once accompanied Luo Qiqi, Princess Yufei, and a few others into an underground chamber, and in there, we managed to stumble upon Elder Wu Yangzi's heritage, Zhang Xian said. Zhao Bingshu nodded, confirming his words. He had compiled a report on it and sent it to the other school heads as well, so they should be aware of the matter, too. The otherworldly demons mentioned earlier are actually puppets forged by Elder Wu Yangzi back when he was still alive, and I only managed to obtain them out of a stroke of luck. Zhang Xian explained. Master teachers are indeed forbidden from coming into contact with otherworldly demons, but Elder Wu Yangzi had already forged them into puppets to serve mankind. Even if I haven't contributed to mankind through them, at the very least, my possession of them can't be considered a sin, right? Everyone was stunned. They had thought that Zhang Xian's subordinates were otherworldly demons, but to think that they were only puppets. Puppets were mindless and possessed no sentience of their own. Unless they were commanded to do so, they wouldn't be able to hurt anyone. Thus, there was no harm in Zhang Xian possessing them. After studying the puppet carefully, Mu Shi remarked, "This is indeed a mindless puppet, and the manner in which it was forged does bear a striking resemblance with Wu Yangzi's smithing technique." The puppets had personally been forged by Wu Yangzi during his captivity in the underground chamber. Precious materials had been devoted to the forging process, so each of the puppets was invaluable treasures. However, this puppet still harnesses killing intent within its body, and it retains its innate instincts as otherworldly demons. Even Wu Yangzi might not have been able to tame it, so how did you make it follow your orders obediently? Realizing the crux of the matter, Mu Shi frowned. Just as the otherworldly demons were mankind's nemeses, the opposite was true as well. The hatred for mankind flowed in the very bloodline of the otherworldly demons, making it nigh impossible for a human to command them. Even an expert like Wu Yangzi would not necessarily be able to tame them, so how did a perfect harmonization realm cultivator like Zhang Xian succeed? Hearing Mu Shi's words, Zhang Xian frowned. The reason he had been able to make the otherworldly demon puppets obey his commands was due to vicious, and exposing vicious existence meant exposing the existence of the Book of Heaven's Path and possibly his greatest secret, the Library of Heaven's Path, as well. Those were his greatest trump cards, so by no means should he ever reveal them. On top of that, this puppet was forged by having body parts forcefully switched while it was still alive. Judging by the marks, it seems like the otherworldly demons didn't reject the swapping of the parts, or to be more exact, they were willing to have it done. Back then, the disappearance of Wu Yangzi caused a huge uproar, and there is even a report documenting it in the Qingyuan conferred Empire Master Teacher Pavilion. If Wu Yangzi possessed the ability to have the otherworldly demons obediently undergo his forging and listen to his commands at the end of it, he should have been more than capable of escaping from his captivity. If that was the case, he wouldn't have been trapped in an underground chamber until his death, Mu Shi analyzed. As a 7-star master teacher, as well as a 7-star blacksmith, Mu Shi was able to easily deduce the forging process of the otherworldly demon puppet. Even with Wu Yangzi's outstanding smithing capability, it would have been hard for him to successfully forge it had the otherworldly demon resisted. Hearing Mu Shi's words, Lu Feng's eyes lit up. Mu Shi is right. These might just be puppets, but their origin is dubious. On top of that, you clearly don't possess the strength to tame them. Unless, you are royalty of the otherworldly demonic tribe, allowing you to command the otherworldly demons just by your bloodline itself. That would explain why the otherworldly demons would willingly allow themselves to be torn apart to be made into puppets, and why they would obey your commands even after death. Zhang Xian's face darkened upon hearing those words. Naturally, he wasn't royalty of the otherworldly demonic tribe, but Vicious was, and he could very well be an emperor among them. It was due to him exerting pressure on those otherworldly demons that Wu Yangzi had been able to forge them into puppets successfully. But if he had to reveal the existence of Vicious, he would risk having to reveal the existence of the Library of Heaven's Path too. I have no idea how the otherworldly demons were forged into puppets either, that was Elder Wu Yangzi's doing. But as for the matter of taming them. After a moment of hesitation, Zhang Xian said, "My teacher, fearing for my safety, tamed them and gave them to me." "Your teacher?" Lu Feng harumphed coldly. "Which master teacher is that?" "I would like to know which formidable master teacher possesses the capability to make so many mindless otherworldly demon puppets obey the orders of a 4-star master teacher." "My teacher." Zhang Xian began to speak, but before he could finish his words, an impassive voice suddenly sounded from beyond the door. "His teacher is me." The room was abruptly engulfed by a devastating aura. Chapter 844, I am Yang Xian. That aura was reminiscent of a tsunami, leaving one feeling insignificant and helpless before it. Everyone's hearts turned cold, and goosebumps rose from their arms. Even Mu Shi's body had tensed in apprehension. Before this aura, there was no one, not even a person as strong Mu Shi, who dared to show the slightest bit of retaliation. Otherwise, they could very well be crushed by that overwhelming power in an instant. Jia! Jia! Under the crushing pressure of that devastating aura, the ancient Elder Hall came to the limits of its durability, and countless cracks began to surface throughout the room. Following which, with a long rumble, the room collapsed entirely. To be able to dissipate the formations here and collapse the room just with the aura he exudes. The school heads in the room exchanged fearful glances. Not only was the Elder Hall made of incredibly resilient material, it was even reinforced with several extremely powerful formations. Even if a Saint 3 Dan expert were to launch an attack with their full might against the room, they might not necessarily be able to destroy the formations. Yet, a person actually managed to dissipate the formations and collapse the room with just his aura. Just how powerful was Zhang Xian's teacher to be able to do that? With this thought in mind, they hurriedly raised their gazes and saw a blurred silhouette standing in the air above them. Amid the cloud of dust, they couldn't make out the other party's appearance clearly. Nevertheless, judging from his physique, the other party didn't seem too old, possibly only in his early 30s, but he carried an authority that none dared to defy. "Are you the ones who suspect my student of being an otherworldly demon?" The figure harumphed coldly. "Then, do I look like an otherworldly demon to you?" Boom! His voice wasn't loud, but it created a sensation that felt as if the sky was crumbling down on them. Under that immense pressure, Lu Feng and the others felt their bodies stiffening, and even breathing became a difficulty. Hung long long. With the intensity of the pressure, the building beneath them also reached its limit and crumbled as well. But that wasn't the end yet. The pressure that man exuded seemed to ripple outward like waves, and any building that came into the slightest contact with it would have the formations protecting it shattered immediately, and the majestic structure would come collapsing down as if nothing more than a fragile piece of paper. That is, the Teacher Acknowledgement Hall. Everyone hurriedly turned to look at the building that had just collapsed, and their eyelids began twitching uncontrollably. That was the Teacher Acknowledgement Hall, where the tablets of the predecessors and Kong Shi's statue were housed. That place was protected by the will of their predecessors, and even if all of them were to strike it with all their might simultaneously, it wouldn't suffer the slightest damage. Yet, with just mere words from the other party, it had collapsed. The fact that the Teacher Acknowledgement Hall has collapsed means that the wills of the predecessors dared not stand against this elder, and even Kong Shi has fled, an elder muttered in a daze. Hearing those words, cold sweat began trickling down everyone's backs. That elder was right. The Teacher Acknowledgement Hall was protected by the will of Kong Shi and many predecessors. Even the otherworldly demons would be doomed for failure if they were to attempt to breach those grounds. For it to collapse that easily with mere words, there was only one possibility: that elder's strength was so great that not even the will Kong Shi had left behind dared to stand against him. And for this to occur, it could only mean that either Kong Shi himself had arrived at the scene or that the other party possessed strength worthy of Kong Shi's respect. But, how could that be possible? Kong Shi was no longer around, and considering the overwhelming strength Kong Shi wielded, a person who possessed strength worthy of his respect would be. Another elder's eyes narrowed as he muttered in a quivering voice, could he be an expert on par with the 72 sages? The predecessors in the Teacher Acknowledgement Hall were all Saint Realm experts at the very least, and not to mention, a sliver of Kong Shi's will was infused within his statue as well. In terms of pure disposition, it was impossible for even a Saint Realm 7 Dan expert, 8-star master teacher, to send all of them fleeing with just mere words. Only one who had achieved strength equivalent to the legendary direct disciples of Empyrean Kong Shi, the 72 sages, could possibly have the ability to do so. Could the elder before them be an expert of such a caliber as well? Was this for real? In the time after Kong Shi's disappearance, the strongest existences in the world had been the 72 sages. However, the era of the 72 sages hadn't lasted for long, so there were very few records of them in the world. After the 72 sages departed, there were quite a number of Saint Realm pinnacle experts who rose to fill the power vacuum left in their absence, and those men founded the existing sage clans in the world. Those old ancestors of the sage clans possessed power surpassing any mortal's imagination. Even a place like the Master Teacher Academy could be wiped off the map with a wave of their hand. But nevertheless, those old ancestors were still a far way off from matching up to the strength of their predecessor, the 72 sages. Even if the other party isn't an expert of the same caliber as the 72 sages, he is probably, at the very least, on par with the old ancestors of those sage clans. With such a thought in mind, everyone subconsciously gulped. A person who could make the Teacher Acknowledgement Hall collapse with just his disposition, there was only a single word that could be used to describe his strength: terrifying. If an expert of that level truly intended to kill them, he need not even move his hands. Just a single thought, and they would be reduced to lifeless corpses in an instant. Furthermore, it would be difficult for even the Master Teacher Pavilion to trace such sudden and obscure deaths to him, which meant that there was nothing they could do to stop or deter him from doing what he liked. He is so strong. Mo Gaoyuan could feel his blood running cold. He had met Zhang Xian's teacher a while back, and they had even chatted with one another. However, as the other party had hidden his strength completely back then, he had thought that the other party was, at the very most, an 8-star master teacher. But it turned out that, even that was an underestimation. With mere words, the other party had turned all of the buildings within several hundred meters of the Elder Hall and Teacher Acknowledgement Hall into rubble. This was a feat beyond the capability of an 8-star master teacher. With a pale face, Pavilion Master Mo furiously whispered to Elder Mo, "I already told you about how powerful Zhang Shi's teacher is. Didn't you tell the other elders?" It was due to his knowledge of how powerful Yang Shi was that he had gone to such lengths to get along with Zhang Xian, and he had discreetly informed Mo Zhu of the news back on Leiyuan Peak so that he could keep a lookout as well. I gave you fair warning, but why are there still fools in your academy going on to judge the other party's student on their own accord? Look, you have ended up incurring the wrath of a power far beyond you. Are you happy now? For an expert of such caliber, even if he chose not to make a move personally out of sheer disdain, he could easily damn one to the bottom of hell with just a single word. I did tell them, but they refused to believe me. Elder Mo replied tearfully. He had never met Yang Shi before, only hearing several rumors from Pavilion Master Mo, so his impression and fear of the man didn't run as deep before. Thus, he had only brought it up casually before the others. Who in the world could have known that the man would be a monster? His strength was way off the charts. You all. Fearing that the man above might just destroy the entire Master-Teacher Academy in a moment of anger, Mo Gaoyuan hurriedly raised his pale face and said, Yang Shi, I am Mo Gaoyuan, you offered me a pointer once before. It's not our intention to make things difficult for Zhang Shi. We only invited Zhang Shi over to ask him a few questions. At this point, he had no choice but to speak up personally. Otherwise, if he were to give that fool Lu Feng an opportunity to speak, they might really just end up breathing their last here. The figure in the sky glanced downward and uttered coldly, Oh. You only invited my student here to ask him a few questions. But why does it seem to me that you are judging my student instead? Is it because you think that he is an otherworldly demon, or do you think that I am an otherworldly demon? An immense pressure that left one feeling as if the world before one was crumbling apart fell from the heavens, leaving the crowd below suffocated. This is a celestial master teacher. In an instant, the faces of everyone in the room paled even further, and the sheer fright they were experiencing rendered them incapable of words. For as long as the world remembered, the only one known to be a celestial master teacher had been Kong Shi. But the inviolable authority reminiscent of a deity from the heavens that the figure above commanded, he was a celestial master teacher as well. They had actually accused the student of a celestial master teacher of being an otherworldly demon. This was the most ludicrous thing anyone could do in the world. Even the heavens had acknowledged him as a master teacher, so how could he possibly accept an otherworldly demon as his student? Wasn't this a joke? Gr Grand Teacher? Seeing the other party's face and feeling the familiar pressure crushing him, Mu Shi finally recognized the man standing above him. Zhang Xian's teacher was no other than his grand teacher, whom he had met several days ago. Yang Xian. If he had known that Zhang Xian was the other party's student, he would never have allowed this hearing to happen. We wouldn't dare. Mo Gaoyuan's lips twitched uncontrollably as he hurriedly bowed deeply in deference. What about you? Yang Xian turned his cold gaze to Lu Feng. And no, I dare not to. Under that frosty gaze, Lu Feng couldn't stop his body from trembling. Had he known earlier that Zhang Xian had such powerful backing, he would never have dared to initiate this mess. He had truly dug his own grave this time around. It was all over. Having offended such a powerful master teacher, even if he were to survive this ordeal, his future was already over. There would be no one and nowhere that would dare accept him. Beside him, Chen Qingshuan and Dong Xian nearly keeled over. They had thought that they would enjoy a life of glory once Lu Feng took over as the principal. They had never imagined such a situation would occur instead. It was as if the path to paradise had suddenly collapsed beneath their feet, damning them to the depths of hell. That had better be the case. Yang Xian harumphed coldly as he raised his gaze, seemingly peering into the depths of the heavens. My name is Yang Xian. If any of you feel that I have abused my power, feel free to report me to the Master Teacher Pavilion headquarters. We wouldn't dare do such a thing. Mo Gaoyuan's face immediately paled in fright. Like hell they would report the other party. On the contrary, if the master-teacher pavilion headquarters were to learn that they had offended a master-teacher of Yang Shi's stature, not only would they not redress their grievances, they might even get rid of them to appease Yang Shi's rage. Master-teachers of Yang Shi's caliber could be considered as the wealth of mankind. Putting aside a master-teacher academy of a Tier 1 empire, not even an entire conferred empire could match up to them in value. They would be counting their blessings if the happenings today never reached the ears of the headquarters. To report this matter the headquarters on their own accord, they would have to be tired of living to do so. It was true that the master-teacher pavilion worked to uphold justice in the world, but it had to be practical as well, especially considering the existing threats it faced. As such, the higher ranked a master-teacher was, the more privileges they were granted. This served as motivation for master-teachers to work harder, as well as a measure to preserve the forces of the master-teacher pavilion as far as possible. Even the life of 10,000 six-star master-teacher couldn't match up to the value of an expert like the other party. Which side the master-teacher pavilion would choose to take, it didn't take a genius to figure it out. That will be for the best, Yang Xian uttered impassively. With a final glance at the crowd beneath, he flung his sleeve and turned around, preparing to leave. At that moment, Mu Shi suddenly rushed forward. Grand Teacher. He had been practicing the cultivation method that his grand teacher had imparted to him over the past few days, and the affliction he had been suffering from had alleviated. For the first time in a very long time, he had experienced a growth in his cultivation. Thinking of the changes he had experienced over the past few days, he was filled with deep gratitude for the man before him. Seeing that his benefactor was about to leave, Mu Shi couldn't help but rush forward in agitation. Yang Xian took a glance at Mu Shi and nodded slightly. Cultivate well, and perhaps, a day might come when you are able to return to the Mu clan. After which, with a slight step, he abruptly disappeared from the spot, as if having teleported away. This is spatial manipulation. He is a 9-star master teacher. After witnessing that scene, the crowd was completely dumbstruck. Having grasped the laws of space, the most distinctive trait of 9-star master teachers was their ability to manipulate space, which allowed them to accomplish the unthinkable, such as constructing inner worlds through folding space. Given how Yang Shi had disappeared before their eyes in an instant, it could only mean that he had comprehended such laws as well. A living 9-star master teacher. There was barely a handful of them still in this world, and they had actually met one and even attempted to judge his student. A shiver ran down everyone's spines as fear gripped their hearts. It was fortunate that the other party, perhaps in view of his identity as a master teacher, had no intentions of getting even with them. Otherwise, they, along with the entire master-teacher academy, would have become a thing of the past. Nevertheless, even though they were spared from this calamity, they would still do well not to push the other party's buttons anymore, which, in this case, was his student. As such a thought came to their minds, they subconsciously turned their gazes to Zhang Xian, only to see the latter with a deep frown on his forehead, seemingly displeased. And the truth was that at this very instant, Zhang Xian was indeed displeased. While he knew that his clone wasn't a reliable person, he hadn't thought that the other party would be so unreliable. Isn't this overdoing it? Chapter 845. I nominate Zhang Xian to be the principal, as he would have to expose the existence of the Library of Heaven's Path in order to explain how he managed to tame those otherworldly demonic puppets. Zhang Xian had planned to have Yang Xian make an appearance to save the day. Thus, through his mental connection with his clone, he had the latter appear in Yang Xian's form. Zhang Xian had initially only intended to have Yang Xian scare the others just a little, but who could have known that he would blow the entire matter way out of proportion? Looking at the wreckage around him, Zhang Xian slapped his forehead in frustration. All his clone had needed to do was prove that he wasn't an otherworldly demon, but that fellow actually turned the Elder Hall, along with many other crucial buildings, into rubble. As for how everything had happened, the powerful aura, which his clone seemed to emanate, was from vicious, naturally. That fellow had once said that as long as he devoured Kong Shi's personal handwriting, he would be able to turn his aura that was drenched with killing intent like all other otherworldly demons into a purer and more orthodox form, similar to that of a master teacher. The collapse of the teacher acknowledgement hall was probably a result of the aura coming from Kong Shi's personal handwriting. While Kong Shi had yet to reach his peak when he left behind those words, there was no way that the will of any master teacher would dare to stand against him. As for the aura of a celestial master teacher, as his clone's soul had come from his, he had also been recognized by the heavens. On top of that, Vicious was around to assist, so they managed to pull it off easily. And the final disappearance was naturally not teleportation either. While the crowd had been being distracted by their own fear, Zhang Xian had managed to slip them into the myriad anthive nest discreetly. Entering a folded space was similar to entering another world. Even with the spiritual perception of a Saint Tu Dan expert, it was impossible to find any traces of them anywhere, thus creating the illusion of teleportation. It was fortunate that they had managed to pull it off perfectly, but considering the destruction left in their wake, wasn't this going too far? Since this was only a small conflict, Zhang Xian had intended to just erase all doubts of him being an otherworldly demon from the minds of the others, but this. He could see deep fear in the eyes on him. Just as he was conflicted as to what he should do under such circumstances, Mu Shi suddenly stepped forward, clasped his fist, and bowed. "Senior uncle." Zhang Xian was slightly stunned for a moment before he responded with a slight nod. There is no need to stand on ceremony. Since Yang Xian was his grand teacher, as the direct disciple of Yang Xian, there was no mistake with Mu Shi addressing him as such. "Senior uncle." Lu Feng's lips twitched, and he nearly fainted on the spot. Mu Shi was a 7-star master teacher, so in terms of seniority, Lu Feng could be considered to be a generation younger than the other party. If the other party was calling Zhang Xian senior uncle, didn't that mean that his seniority before Zhang Xian had dropped yet another generation, putting him on equal standing as the latter's grand student? It was just a moment ago that he had still been a junior. Would the other party be calling him a child next? What the heck was going on? Not only did Lu Feng suffer a heavy blow from this, Dong Xian's vision had also darkened upon hearing those words. Previously, Long Cangyue had said that going by the current trend, the next one of them to provoke Zhang Xian could just end up as his great-grand student. Back then, she hadn't thought much of it, thinking that it was impossible. But this. As a direct disciple of Lu Feng, if her teacher's seniority was that of Zhang Xian's grand student, wouldn't that make her his great-grand student? Of the great 4 student factions in the Master Teacher Academy, Hu Yao Yao was the first to challenge Zhang Xian, and she ended up becoming his apprentice. Shui Zhenyang was the second, and he became his grand student. And she, being the third, became his great-grand student. Tears wouldn't stop flowing down Dong Xian's cheeks. If she had known that this would happen, she would never have gotten involved in this trouble. Now, she would have to call even Hu Yao Yao her grand teacher. This. Pavilion Master Mo and the others were also at a loss after hearing Mu Shi calling Zhang Xian senior uncle. Paying no heed to the bizarre expressions of the crowd, Zhang Xian asked Mu Shi, "With this, there shouldn't be anyone who still suspects me of being an otherworldly demon, right?" Mu Shi hurriedly shook his head. "Of course not. You are Yang Shi's student, and Yang Shi is a celestial master teacher. There is no way a student of a celestial master teacher could be an otherworldly demon." The other master teachers in the area also hastily agreed. "Since this matter is cleared, this hearing should be over. I can take my leave now, right?" Zhang Xian continued. "Of course." Mu Shi nodded hurriedly. "All right, I will bid you all farewell now," Zhang Xian said. Given the current state of affairs, even if he didn't say a word, the Master Teacher Academy would still certainly make sure that Lu Feng was punished severely for his actions. As the most senior figure in the room, there was no need for him to lower his standing to deal with a mere grand student. If he really insisted on dealing with Lu Feng, the prestige that he had just built up using his clone's disguise would be diminished. Furthermore, the reputation of the Master Teacher Academy was at stake here, so it wouldn't be good for a student like him to get involved in the matter. It would be best to leave it to the school heads to deal with the matter as they deemed fit. But just as Zhang Xian was just about to leave, school head Imo stepped forward and said, "Zhang Shi, please wait a moment. Is there still a problem?" Zhang Xian asked politely. School head Imo had granted him plenty of help ever since his enrollment, so he had a high opinion of the latter. Even in the hearing just a moment ago, before Yang Shi made an appearance, he had been active in speaking up for him. It is like this. Mu Shi once said that anyone who finds Senior Byzantium Helios will be made the next principal. Since you were the one who found Senior Byzantium Helios, and you have even become his master, I feel that it will only be right for you to take on the responsibility as the next principal of our academy. After saying those words, school head Imo turned to look at the others and asked, "What do the rest of you think of this matter?" Ever since the old principal disappeared, the academy had slowly become divided, and troubles had emerged one after another. It was imperative that someone in the academy had to step up to take hold of the situation, and Zhang Xian seemed to be the ideal candidate for that. While he might be lacking in his cultivation, he made up for that through his deep comprehension in the other supporting occupations. Besides, he had Senior Byzantium Helios as his tamed beast. With such powerful backing, who would dare question his authority? I was thinking of making the same suggestion. Zhao Bingxiu nodded in agreement. I have no qualms with Zhang Shi becoming our next principal. Wei Ranxue replied. I think that Zhang Laoshi is the most suitable candidate to become the principal as well. Jiang Qingqi nodded. I agree. School head Su Changqing of the martial arts school hesitated for a moment before nodding. Wang Ying and the others were guest elders of their school. If their teacher were to become the principal, they would surely be willing to devote more time to imparting knowledge to the student. In just a few moments, half of the 10 great master teachers had already expressed their support for the motion. Senior uncle is a student of the Hongyuan Master Teacher Academy himself, and he also fulfills most of the conditions required to become the principal. If he is willing to take on this responsibility, that will truly be a blessing for the academy. Mu Shi's eyes lit up, and he nodded. I agree to this motion as well. His main mission for coming to the Master Teacher Academy was to nominate and confirm the next principal. While senior uncle might still be young, and his cultivation is still weak, he has a strong backer who is more than sufficient to make up for his deficiencies. Besides, senior uncle is also an exceptional genius. Most likely, he will be able to rise up to the role in just a few years' time, and under his leadership, the Hongyuan Master Teacher Academy could be brought to unprecedented greatness. Mu Shi turned his sights to the remaining 5 school heads. What about the rest of you? This. Lu Feng and Qin Qingxuan glanced at one another with extreme reluctance. They would have vetoed the motion immediately under normal circumstances, but considering their current plight and Zhang Xian's newfound status. Since even Mu Shi is in support of this matter, I have no objections either, the head of the painter school said. I have no objections, too. The head of the Celestial Designer School said. I am of the same opinion as the others. Zhong Dingchun, the head of the Physician School, nodded. Eventually, Lu Feng and Qin Qingxuan had no choice but to relent as well. All right, we agree to the motion. They had no choice in this matter. With 8 of the 10 great master teachers in support of this motion, even if they were to voice their disagreements, nothing would change. With all of the school heads in support of this motion, school head Mo was just about to make the official declaration of the results when a deep, resounding voice suddenly sounded. One of the requirements to become the principal of the Master Teacher Academy is to be a 6-star master teacher. Zhang Shi hasn't met this requirement yet. I disagree with this matter. The Golden Origin Cauldron objected. As the guardian saint artifact of the Master Teacher Academy, its position was higher than even that of the school heads. Naturally, it had a say in the matter as well. Senior Golden Origin Cauldron, even though Zhang Shi isn't a 6-star master teacher yet, given his astounding talent, it won't be long before he successfully clears the examination, School Head Mo said. The others nodded in agreement at School Head Mo's words. They had witnessed the heaven-defying talent of that young man personally, and the copious destruction all over the Master Teacher Academy served as testimony to that. If even a genius like him couldn't pass the 6-star Master Teacher examination, who else could? You may be right, but have you all forgotten about the selection 3 months' time? The Golden Origin Cauldron asked. 3 months' time. The crowd frowned, unsure of what the Golden Origin Cauldron was referring to. It seems like all of you have really forgotten about it. 3 months from now will be the Centennial Combat Master Selection, the Golden Origin Cauldron exclaimed. Combat Master Selection. Now that you mention it, it has indeed been 100 years since the previous selection. The Qingyuan Conferred Empire's Combat Master Hall only conducts a selection exercise once every 100 years. I wasn't a school head yet during the previous selection, so I don't really recall it. The 4 great academies under Qingyuan Conferred Academy will be gathering together for the selection. It will be a huge event. I had forgotten about that as well. If Zhang Shi fails to become a 6-star master teacher within the next 3 months, we won't stand a chance against the other 3 academies. Everyone fell silent. Combat Master Selection. Zhang Xian asked doubtfully. He didn't think that he would remain in Hongyuan Empire for too long, so it didn't matter to him whether he became the principal of the Master Teacher Academy or not. However, judging from everyone's tone, it seemed like they had some apprehensions regarding the Combat Master selection. I believe Zhang Shi should have heard of Combat Masters before. School Head Mo asked. Zhang Xian nodded in response. The Combat Master Hall could be considered an offshoot of the Master Teacher Pavilion, serving primarily as its offensive wing. Combat Masters were considered Master Teachers as well, but they need not be skilled in teaching nor did they have to take on supporting occupations. All that was required of them was to be sufficiently strong to clear the respective examinations to obtain their Master Teacher rank. Each Combat Master was known to possess the capability of fighting with opponents with higher cultivation levels than them. Even among the powerful Master Teachers, they could be considered experts. Back then, when he was in Huanyu Empire, he had once been suspected of being a Combat Master on one occasion. The Master Teachers of the Combat Master Hall are famed for their overwhelming strength, and most regarded as an honor to join their ranks, School Head Mo explained. Once every century, the Combat Master Hall will select fresh blood from the various academies to fill their ranks, and the next selection happens to be in 3 months' time. 3 months. That's right. In 3 months' time, the 4 academies will gather together for the selection. However, due to the limited slots, the principals of the 4 academies will be first competing in a duel to decide on the allocation of slots to each academy first. School Head Mo said awkwardly, if Zhang Shi becomes the principal, you will have to participate in the principal's duel. Given your current strength, I fear that you might not be able to hold your ground against the others. As principals of Master Teacher Academies, the opponents Zhang Xian might face would be 6-star Pinnacle or even 7-star Master Teachers. Given Zhang Shi's talent, there was no doubt that he could surpass the other principals if given sufficient time, but the duel was in 3 months' time. I see. Zhang Xian nodded in realization. It was no wonder everyone was worried. He was currently only at Ethereal Treading Realm primary stage, which would put him at a fatal disadvantage against the other principals. Actually, there is no need to worry. If I am not mistaken, Zhang Laoshi already has 5 supporting occupations at 6-star rank. As long as he earns 1 more, he will have cleared the supporting occupation prerequisite for the 6-star Master Teacher examination. I think it is possible to make it within 3 months. Jiang Qingqin interjected. Currently, the 6-star supporting occupations that Zhang Shi had were blacksmith, physician, apothecary, dropsicary, and demonic tunist. He was still lacking another one to clear the supporting occupation prerequisite for the 6-star master teacher examination. Given the ridiculous rate which he learned at, getting another supporting occupation up to 6-star within 3 months shouldn't be a problem. Chapter 846, Principal Zhang. After all, Jiang Qingqin had personally witnessed the rate at which Zhang Xian learned. He had still been completely ignorant the first day, but the following day, his capability as a demonic tunist abruptly soared to 7-star. Considering that, it shouldn't take him too long to master another supporting occupation. I am not worried about his supporting occupations but his cultivation. Zhang Shi is currently only at perfect harmonization realm, but the minimum requirement to take the 6-star examination is to reach chrysalis realm pinnacle, Xiao Bingshu said. 5-star low tier, high tier, and pinnacle corresponded to cosmos bridge realm, perfect harmonization realm, and ethereal treading realm. In order to take the 6-star master teacher examination, one's cultivation had to be chrysalis realm pinnacle at the minimum. Back then, when Zhang Shi clashed with Yu Su, he had exposed his strength, perfect harmonization realm pinnacle. It was impressive for a freshman, but he was still 2 realms away from becoming a 6-star master teacher. To progress through 2 realms within 3 months. One could say that it was nearly impossible. Actually, when I went out a few days ago, I accidentally made a breakthrough, so my cultivation is currently at ethereal treading realm. Zhang Xian said. Accidentally? Everyone widened their eyes in shock. Others had to put in a huge amount of effort while expending many valuable treasures in order to reach ethereal treading realm, and yet, you claim that you reached it accidentally? On top of that, you still dare to say it as if you have been wronged. Can you be more serious? This is an important matter we are speaking of. In truth, they had wronged Zhang Xian. It was indeed true that he had made the breakthrough unintentionally, and he was frustrated by the matter. You made the breakthrough to ethereal treading realm? But different from the frustrated and stifled expressions of the others, school head Mo froze, and his mouth suddenly began twitching. When Zhang Shi first participated in the entrance examination, I remember that his cultivation was only at consonant spirit realm pinnacle. It was to save a group of students that he made the breakthrough to Cosmos Bridge realm in the midst of the examination. As the invigilator, he had kept tabs on the happenings of the examination so as to source out talented students which the academy could devote resources to grooming. According to what he'd heard, Zhang Xian had forcefully raised his cultivation by an entire realm just so to save his fellow peers from the encirclement they were in. He had lamented after hearing the news as such forceful and abrupt breakthroughs tended to leave hidden traumas within one's body, limiting one's future progress. This was also why he had advised Zhang Xian to take note of this matter and make sure to stabilize his cultivation well. But before he knew it, the other party was suddenly at ethereal treading realm. It has been less than 20 days since the entrance examination, right? Someone amid the crowd muttered. Everyone hurriedly turned their gazes to the young man in horror, as if they were staring at a monster. To advance from transcendent mortal 5 Dan consonant spirit realm to 8 Dan ethereal treading realm in slightly more than half a month. That was nearly 3 whole realms. Are you sure you aren't some renowned expert concealing your cultivation to toy with us? Even cultivation impartation couldn't possibly be as fast as that, right? Don't you need to reinforce your cultivation? Don't you need to spend some time digesting and musing over the intricacies of each cultivation realm? Just as they were feeling frenzied over the matter, they suddenly heard Zhang Xian sighing deeply, and with an embarrassed look, he said, "Indeed. I have been spending too much time on advancing my supporting occupations that I wasn't able to find much time to cultivate, so my progress has been slow." In truth, he had been intending to sweep through the 10 schools within 10 days and spend an additional 6 more striving for Saint Realm 1 Dan, thus graduating within half a month. But more than half a month had passed, and he was only at ethereal treading realm primary stage. Additionally, he had only mastered 5 supporting occupations as well. He was embarrassed by his incapability. Hearing those words, the crowd nearly spurted blood. The heck? You call this slow? If your pace is considered slow, then what do you call spending several decades just to raise our cultivation by one stage? Also, wipe that embarrassment off your face. The ones who should be embarrassed are us. What made things worse was that despite the ridiculousness of Zhang Xian's words, they could tell that he wasn't lying, deepening the trauma they had just suffered. Ever since the other party enrolled in the academy, he had spent 7 days to master 5 supporting occupations, achieving proficiency levels surpassing even those of the heads of the respective schools, causing pandemonium in his wake. Not only so, he even had the time to conduct lectures and establish the influential Xianxian faction. Despite all he had done, he was still able to find time to make the breakthrough from Cosmos Bridge Realm Pinnacle to Perfect Harmonization Realm Pinnacle. If he had devoted his time to just cultivating in itself. Forget it, let's not think about it anymore. It will only make us feel worse anyway. In comparison to the other party, their rate of cultivation was indeed not only slow. It was as if they suffered from a complete lack of talent. As stifled as they were, recalling the unfathomable expert the other party had as a teacher, they could only accept what was before them. Incredible talent paired with an unparalleled teacher. If the other party were to be on the same level as them, that would be truly embarrassing. He would be unworthy of his title as a genius. After a long moment of silence, one of the elders spoke up. Given Zhang Shi's capability, reaching 6-star within 3 months shouldn't be a problem for him. I think so, too. Words of agreement soon rippled through the group. 3 months wasn't a long time for a cultivator, it would be gone in one period of seclusion. But to the fellow before them, they dared not think what he could achieve within this limited period of time. Perhaps, he might even be able to make the breakthrough to Saint Realm. Then, since we have come to a consensus, let's not hesitate any longer. We shall conduct the inauguration ceremony in 3 days then. Mu Shi declared with a wave of his hand. The inauguration of the principal of the Master Teacher Academy was a huge affair with great implications for the surrounding Tier 1 empires and Master Teacher pavilions. The reason it was set for 3 days later was to allow for sufficient preparation time for the ceremony and to invite the guests. Besides, they had to fix the Elder Hall and the Teacher Acknowledgement Hall first. Otherwise, if others were to see the tattered state the Great Master Teacher Academy had been reduced to, they would probably laugh themselves to death. Having decided on the matter, the others quickly nodded in agreement. While the Golden Origin Cauldron did have a vote in the matter as well, given that even Mu Shi had expressed his support for Zhang Xian, it had no choice but to go along with the majority decision as well. In any case, its standing wouldn't change regardless of who became the principal, so there was no need for it to go all out to oppose Zhang Xian either. Seeing how the group had come to a decision without him, Zhang Xian's eyelids twitched uncontrollably. In your discussion, deciding whether I should be the principal or not, shouldn't you have asked for my opinion as well? Perhaps noticing Zhang Xian's thoughts, the Byzantium Helios beast said, Master, becoming the principal might be a heavy responsibility, but it comes with many privileges as well. For one, you can access the facilities of the school, the libraries and such, freely. Hearing those words, Zhang Xian's eyes lit up. If he could gain access to all of the books in the academy freely, becoming the new principal was indeed nothing much. After the confirmation of this matter, the group discussed, for another 2 hours, how best to allocate the various responsibilities for the preparations of the inauguration ceremony. Nearing the end of the meeting, school head Mo turned to Zhang Xian and said apologetically, Zhang Shi, until the inauguration ceremony is over, we can't bring you into the principal's residence. Thus, we will have to ask you to remain in your manor for a while longer. Even though this matter was already approved by the 10 great master teachers and Mu Shi, Zhang Xian still couldn't be considered the official principal until the inauguration ceremony was over. Thus, he couldn't use most of the authority he had as the principal just yet. Understanding this, Zhang Xian nodded in response. In any case, it was just 3 days. It would pass in a flash. In the discussion, it was decided that Zhang Xian should focus his attention on raising his cultivation and clearing the 6-star master-teacher examination, so most of the responsibilities of the principal would be distributed among the 10 great master-teachers for the time being. Naturally, upon hearing those words, Zhang Xian heaved a huge sigh of relief. At that point, he suddenly recalled another matter he had to tend to, so he asked, "I need to forge a grade 7 pill. So may I borrow Senior Golden Origin Cauldron for a moment?" It had been 10 days since he had left Hongyuan City, and while he hadn't had the time to check on Wei Ruyan yet, her soul should have been sufficiently nourished at this point. It was about time for him to move on to the next step. Thus, the urgent matter at hand was to forge the Grand Intermittence Pill. The various medicinal herbs should have been gathered by now, and Apothecary Lu and the others should have achieved a certain level of mastery in the forging technique he had imparted to them. What he was lacking now was a proper cauldron to forge the Grand Intermittence Pill in. Cough cough. His face flushed with anxiety, Zhao Bingshu hurriedly explained, "Zhang Shi, Senior Golden Origin Cauldron is a weapon cauldron, not a pill cauldron." It went without saying that there was a huge difference between a weapon cauldron and a pill cauldron. As a 6-star blacksmith and apothecary, Zhang Shi should have been more than able to tell the difference. Why would he make such a bizarre request out of the blue? "I understand, but the medicinal energy contained within a grade 7 pill is so great that I fear that spirit tier cauldrons will be unable to harness it. Most probably, only a saint cauldron like Senior Golden Origin Cauldron will be able to do so," Zhang Xian said. Zhang Xian was confident that Apothecary Lu and the others would be able to successfully forge the Grand Intermittence Pill if they were to follow his procedures strictly without incurring a cauldron explosion, but after his previous few experiences in pill forging, he understood that things wouldn't necessarily go as planned regardless of how thorough the preparations were. If a spirit tier cauldron was used and it failed to confine the explosion, the entire Master-Teacher Academy could possibly be reduced to rubble. This was a risk he couldn't afford to take. Zhao Bingshu was perplexed. There is a huge difference between a pill cauldron and a weapon cauldron. How are you going to forge a pill in him? There's no need to worry. Even though Senior Golden Origin Cauldron is a weapon cauldron, he is still ultimately a cauldron. As long as I place a formation over him to alter his properties slightly, he will work fine as a pill cauldron as well, Zhang Xian replied with a smile. The main difference between a pill cauldron and a weapon cauldron lay in their temperature. Weapon cauldrons were far better at retaining heat, thus allowing the temperature to rise to higher levels. On the other hand, pill cauldrons could heat up and cool down swiftly, making it easier to manipulate the temperature. Fortunately, this problem could be easily solved by implementing a formation on top of the cauldron, so it wasn't a huge issue. Hearing that Zhang Xian could alter the properties of a weapon cauldron into that of a pill cauldron with a formation, Zhao Bingshu hesitated for a moment before nodding. "If you are confident, I will talk to Senior Golden Origin Cauldron on your behalf." However, at that moment, the Golden Origin Cauldron suddenly harumphed. "I am a saint weapon cauldron, and you expect me to forge a pill for you? Dream on." As a saint artifact, it had its own pride. To it, making it forge a pill was like forcing a duck to lay chicken eggs, and it viewed it as a huge insult. How could it possibly agree to that? Hearing those words, Zhao Bingshu clasped his fist and pleaded, "Senior, don't waste your breath, it's not like you are unaware of my temper. If you say another word, I shall swallow you and turn you into cinders," the Golden Origin Cauldron bellowed with unconcealable pride in its tone. Hearing the obstinate tone of the Golden Origin Cauldron, Zhao Bingshu could only sigh deeply and shake his head helplessly. "Zhang Shi, I'm afraid that I won't be able to help you on this. If Senior Golden Origin Cauldron refuses to help you, there is no way we can force him to help you. If the spirit within a saint artifact refused to cooperate, it would be impossible to use the artifact. If the Golden Origin Cauldron were to tamper with the forging process even in the slightest, the medicinal herbs could be easily turned to ash, resulting in a tragic failure. Let me try negotiate with him myself." Zhang Xian told Zhao Bingshu telepathically before walking up to the Golden Origin Cauldron. It must be said that the saint artifact was indeed massive, standing half a head taller than Zhang Xian. It emanated a domineering aura that exerted immense pressure on those standing before it. As expected of the guardian saint artifact of the Master Teacher Academy, it indeed possessed fearsome prowess. Even the Byzantium Helios beast, despite its breakthrough, was no match for the other party. The Golden Origin Cauldron harumphed coldly. You want me to forge pills for you? That is impossible, so you'd better kick that idea out of your mind. Otherwise, even if they have all nominated you to be the next principal, I will still reduce you to cinders. Senior, hold it for a moment. It won't be too late for you to make your decision after hearing my offer. Zhang Xian smiled confidently. After which, he stepped closer and placed his palm lightly on the Golden Origin Cauldron. Following which, he circled around the Golden Origin Cauldron, smacking his palm on it intermittently as he walked by. Do you think that Zhang Shi will be able to tame Senior Golden Origin Cauldron? School Head Mo asked School Head Zhao discreetly as he gazed at the sight before him. Zhao Bingshu shook his head. I think it will be difficult. It's not like you don't know Senior Golden Origin Cauldron's temper. He even snubbed the old principal back then, so I don't think Zhang Shi will fare any better with him. To persuade him, unlikely. Truly unlikely. I think so too. School Head Mo sighed. Just as he was about to continue speaking, a sharp sound suddenly echoed from the Golden Origin Cauldron, and its massive body jolted abruptly. The next moment, it cuddled up to Zhang Xian, as if a lapdog trying to please its owner. Ding ding, one pays respect to master. Master, I will forge whatever you want me to. Isn't it just pills? How many do you need? School Head Mo. School Head Zhao. The others. Chapter 847, Yufei's Invitation. The Golden Origin Cauldron was a real saint artifact, the guardian of the Master Teacher Academy. It was an extremely prideful existence, such that even though the preceding principals had the right to mobilize it in extreme situations, none had succeeded in taming it before. Even the previous principal, despite having made a breakthrough to 7-star before he went missing, had been unable to make it submit to him. To make things worse, the Golden Origin Cauldron was also extremely lazy. It preferred to spend its time dozing lazily, so nearly no one had been able to convince it to allow them to smith a weapon using it. Yet, Zhang Xian was asking it to forge a pill. Everyone thought that he would be disappointed, but who knew that such a godly twist was waiting for them? Not to mention, what the heck is ding ding? Ding your head. You are a saint artifact, the guardian of the Master Teacher Academy. Where is your pride and dignity? On the other hand, Lu Feng felt as if he was going insane as well. When he invited the Golden Origin Cauldron to the conference earlier on, it had acted extremely arrogantly, even threatening to reduce him to cinders. Yet, at this very moment, it was cozying up to Zhang Xian in an attempt to fawn over him, as if fearing that the latter wouldn't allow it to help him. How could there be such a huge difference in treatment even though they were both humans? Having tamed the Golden Origin Cauldron, Zhang Xian turned his gaze back to the crowd and smiled. Done. Even though the Golden Origin Cauldron was a saint artifact, it still had its fair share of flaws. Using the Library of Heaven's Path, Zhang Xian had been able to find them easily, and he had corrected some of them on the spot. After building up his credibility, he had given his word to the other party that he would help it raise its tier. With such an alluring offer placed before it, it was inevitable that the Golden Origin Cauldron would jump at it. After a long moment of speechlessness, Zhao Bingshu could only raise his thumb and compliment him. Incredible, my principal. It was impossible not to be impressed by him. Zhang Shi had always managed to exceed their expectations each and every time. Under his lead, the academy just might reach unprecedented heights, perhaps even surpassing the other three to become the top Master Teacher Academy under Qingyuan Empire. Master, that fellow has gone to great lengths to do you in. Shall I reduce him to cinders for you? After pledging allegiance to Zhang Xian, it immediately began thinking on his behalf as well. With an aura dripping with savagery, it glared at Lu Feng ferociously, seemingly threatening to devour him whole. It had seen how the other party had gleefully tried to bring his master down. His master, as a grand teacher-like figure to the other party, could overlook his grandstudent's mistake, but as his master's loyal artifact, it couldn't do the same. Hearing those words, Lu Feng's face immediately paled in fright. Senior. Famed as the Master Teacher Academy's guardian saint artifact, the Golden Origin Cauldron standing could be considered equivalent to an old ancestor of the Master Teacher Academy. Even if it were to really reduce him to cinders, considering that this was an internal affair of the Master Teacher Academy, not even Mu Shi would be in a good position to speak up on his behalf. Who are you calling senior? Call me your grandfather. The Golden Origin Cauldron sneered coldly. On the verge of tears, Lu Feng turned to Mu Shi desperately to plead with him for help. However, Mu Shi shook his head and said, Senior Golden Origin Cauldron is right. You framed an innocent master teacher and nearly ruined his reputation. I will report this matter to the headquarters as I have seen it. Chen Qingshuan, for blindly listening to the words of another, failing to discern right from wrong, you will be stripped of your responsibility as the head of the Formation Master School, and you are to await the verdict from the headquarters. While school head Chen might not have played a huge role in this incident, he was still a culprit who had played a part in framing Zhang Shi. I understand. In that instant, Chen Qingshuan seemed as if he had aged a decade. As for Dong Xian, as a student of the Master Teacher Academy, instead of working hard on your studies and acting as a role model for the freshmen, you got involved in the politics of the academy and became a tool for Lu Feng to frame Zhang Shi. From today onward, you will be stripped of your position as a student. In other words, you are expelled from the academy. Mu Shi waved his hands. With the accusations against Zhang Xian proving to be unfounded, and that he was going to be the next principal of the Master Teacher Academy, those who had attempted to do him in had to be dealt with. Otherwise, if they were to set a precedent for leniency in such a matter, it might encourage others to do the same. Furthermore, the authority and standing of the principal could not be sullied by just anyone. While Dong Xian had said that she was just recounting that she had seen, it was due to her words that Lu Feng and Chen Qingshuan had put the plan into motion. The words of a master teacher held great power, so it was imperative that they should be held accountable for their words. It was an unfortunate mistake, but it was a fact that she had unwittingly become Lu Feng's accomplice as well, so she had to be promptly punished, too. With a darkened complexion, Dong Xian clasped her fist and bowed. Yes. She had thought that having found a handle on Zhang Xian, she could finally get one over him. But not only had she become of the same seniority as the other party's great-grand student, she was even expelled from the academy. While she was still a 6-star master teacher after leaving the academy, the connections she had built up in the academy over many years had gone to waste. On top of that, there was also a blemish on her record, making it difficult for her to advance further as a master teacher. Of the four of us, it seems Hu Yaoyao is the wisest after all. Dong Xian sighed deeply. Their 4 student factions had been competing with one another for several years, and thinking about the matter, it seemed like Hu Yaoyao was the one with the most foresight of the 4 leaders. As Zhang Shi's apprentice, it would mean that she was a direct subordinate of the academy's principal. With such an identity, her prestige would skyrocket, and many would be eager to fawn over her, making it easier than ever for her to obtain resources and forge connections. After dealing with the trio, Mu Shi turned to Zhang Xian and asked, Principal Zhang, is this resolution fine with you? Even though Mu Shi was a 7-star master teacher, Zhang Xian was currently the principal of the academy. By addressing Zhang Xian as Principal Zhang and consulting him on this matter, he was expressing his respect for the other party's authority, as well as to clear away any doubts that he might be siding with Lu Feng and the others. Yes, the resolution is fine with me. Zhang Xian nodded in response. Actually, in his view, as long as the trio were willing to contribute all of their spirit stones to him, he didn't mind dropping the matter altogether. In any case, those three were unlikely to be able to start anything anymore. Yet, not only were they removed from their current positions, some of them might even lose their master-teacher license. What complaints could Zhang Xian have of this? I still have matters to tend to, so I will be returning now. Ding ding, let's go. Leaving those words behind, Zhang Xian flicked his wrist and stored the golden origin cauldron in his storage ring as he bade the others farewell. After returning to his manor, he had Sun Cheng head to the Xianxian faction headquarters to invite Apothecary Lu and the others over before making his way to the apothecary school. Back then, he had communicated with the headquarters, and the other party had said that they would bring the grand intermittence grass over. Walking through the apothecary school, he soon reached the reception of the apothecary pavilion and found that the medicinal herb the headquarters had promised him had arrived several days earlier. It was said that the man who delivered the medicinal herb had wanted to hand it over to him personally, but after waiting a day in futility, he could only leave in disappointment. Having obtained the grand intermittence grass, Zhang Xian was just about to return to his manor to check up on Wei Ruyan's condition when he suddenly saw Luo Qiqi walking toward him. Upon seeing Zhang Xian, Luo Qiqi's eyes lit up. "Teacher, you're back." "Zhang Shi." There were several others standing behind Luo Qiqi. They were Yu Fei'er, Xing Yuan, Wu Zhen, and Yi Qian. Just like Luo Qiqi, they had all achieved a breakthrough in their cultivation, reaching the perfect harmonization realm. It seemed like Zhao Bingshu's meridian and bone cleansing was indeed extremely useful to them. In just a single period of seclusion, they had already made significant advancements in their cultivation. Not bad. Zhang Xian remarked with a smile. Even though he had a conflict with the others previously, the experience they had shared in the underground chamber had forged a unique bond among them. Thus, he truly felt happy for them from the depths of his heart when he saw them achieving greater heights. "Zhang Xian, I told you that I will repay my debt to you. Here are 3 high-tier spirit stones, treat the remaining as extra compensation for that day." Yu Fei'er stepped forward and handed him a jade box. 3 high-tier spirit stones were lined up within it, and they harnessed such great energy within them that even the spiritual energy in the surroundings was disturbed. She had gambled with Zhang Xian on multiple occasions, but not once did a bet end in her victory, and she even became the other party's maid, though thinking about it now, she had never really fulfilled her responsibilities as a maid. Nevertheless, as a princess of Hongyuan Empire, and considering the fact that she had just made a breakthrough to the perfect harmonization realm, it wasn't too difficult for her to ask for a couple of high-tier spirit stones from the royal court. "I won't stand on ceremony then." If there was one thing Zhang Xian always needed, it was spirit stones. With a flick of his wrist, he placed the jade box into his storage ring. "Zhang Shi, we have heard of your encounter in the academy. Did the school heads make things difficult for you?" Xing Yuan and Wu Zhen asked anxiously. From the moment they came out from their seclusion, they had been hearing about Zhang Shi's affairs in the academy, how he crippled several schools and even challenged a vice school head to a life-and-death physician duel. It could be said that in just the half of month since Zhang Shi's enrollment, the ruckus he had caused in the academy was greater than what the 4 of them had caused over the past few years. Seeing that the others were sincerely worried for him, Zhang Xian replied with a smile, "They didn't. Don't worry, I'm fine." "That's good." Hearing those words, the group heaved a sigh of relief. At this point, Yu Fei'er stepped forward, and gritting her teeth, she hesitated for a brief moment before saying, "My father hopes to meet you." "Your father? That is, the Emperor of Hongyuan Empire?" Zhang Xian was taken aback. Since Yu Fei'er was the 6th princess of Hongyuan Empire, naturally, her father must be the incumbent emperor. "That's right." Yu Fei'er nodded. "When?" Zhang Xian asked doubtfully. "He has asked me to invite you to the banquet tonight," Yu Fei'er replied. why would he invite me to a banquet? Zhang Xian was puzzled. He was only a 4-star master teacher. He might have caused quite a ruckus in the academy, but surely what he had done wasn't sufficient for the emperor of a Tier 1 empire to extend an invitation to him. King Huai has gifted you a luxurious manor, and you once took me in as your maid as well. On top of that, you caused quite a huge ruckus in the academy and emptied out nearly the entire spirit emporium. Naturally, my father hopes to meet the mastermind behind all of that. Yu Feier said. At Zhang Xian's current pace, it seemed as if he would tear apart the capital next. If Yu Feier's father hadn't heard of him after everything that he had done, he would truly be an incompetent emperor. Not to mention, he had taken the other party's daughter as his maid at one point in time. Even though Yu Feier didn't mention it to him, he still had his sources to uncover that. This. Zhang Xian scratched his head awkwardly. All right then. However, I need to forge a pill first. If I have time, I will make sure to drop by. Since he was staying in Hongyuan Empire for the time being, it would be impossible for him to steer completely clear of Yu Feier's father Wei, especially if the other party was intent on meeting him. Besides, there was nothing for him to fear either. It's settled then. I will meet you at the banquet. The location is the royal palace, and here is your invitation letter. Seeing that she had received Zhang Xian's agreement, Yu Feier passed a letter over with a smile. Zhang Xian took the letter and stowed it in his storage ring. After bidding farewell to Yu Feier, Luo Qiqi, and the others, Zhang Xian returned to his manor. However, as soon as he stepped through the door, Sun Chang suddenly rushed up to him with an anxious look on his face. Young master, bad news, the 10-leafed flower you have planted in the courtyard has changed colors. Chapter 848, Wei Ruyan's state, the color changed. Taken aback, Zhang Xian hurriedly made his way over the area where the 10-leafed flower was planted. The 10-leafed flower was a saint herb. Upon reaching maturity, a different colored flower would bloom on each of its 10 leaves, and each flower corresponded to a human's 3 hun and 7 pa. One Wei Ruyan's soul had been placed into it to be nourished. Based on what his deduction, the color of the 10-leafed flower shouldn't change in the midst of the treatment, so what could be happening? Soon, at the center of the courtyard, Zhang Xian saw the 10-leafed flower. Its previously resplendent flowers had all turned pitch black, as if someone had tossed a bucket of ink over it. What happened? Zhang Xian's face darkened. The 10 colors of the 10-leafed flower were symbolic of its ability to nurture a soul. For them to have turned black, it was clear that some kind of mishap must have happened. He had already promised the deceased Wei Changfeng to take good care of his daughter, so nothing could be allowed to happen to Wei Ruyan. Young master, you told me take care of this flower, so I have been diligently watering it with some earth vein spirit essence every day. It had been growing well, and even when I checked it this morning before you returned, I didn't notice any anomalies. However, just 2 hours ago, the colors of its flowers suddenly turned pitch black. I checked the surroundings carefully, but there were no signs of anyone coming by and tampering with it. I have no idea what happened, Sun Chang explained anxiously. It suddenly turned pitch black. Zhang Xian muttered with a frown. He released the surrounding formation and studied the surroundings carefully, and indeed, just as Sun Chang said, it didn't seem like anyone else had been there. Since no one else had been there, Sun Chang would have been the greatest suspect. However, Sun Chang had been with him for some time now, and he trusted the other party deeply. Furthermore, Sun Chang had no reason to harm Wei Ruyan. Just what could have happened? Perplexed, Zhang Xian walked up to the 10-leafed flower and studied it carefully with his eye of insight. Previously nourished by the earth vein spirit essence and heaven's path Xinqi, the 10-leafed flower had been overflowing with vitality when he left Hongyuan City 10 days ago. But in this instant, not only had the resplendent flowers turned black, even the leaves seemed to have become slightly withered, as if they were suffering from some kind of terminal illness that was sapping its life force away. This feeling was particularly prominent when Zhang Xian saw the decay on the exposed rhizome of the herb. How could this have happened? Under the constant nourishment of the dense spiritual energy from the spirit-gathering formation and the earth vein spirit essence, the saint herb should have flourished with time. How could it have been reduced to this state instead? Zhang Xian stretched his hand over to touch the 10-leafed flower and muttered, "Flaws," beneath his breath. The next moment, a book materialized in the library of Heaven's Path, and he hurriedly flipped it open. Upon taking a look, his complexion turned awful. It was indeed poisoned. According to the details recorded in the Library of Heaven's Path, the reason the 10-leafed flower had been reduced to its current state was because it had been poisoned. Wei Ruyan possesses the poison soul constitution, which means that her soul contains lethal poison. The 10-leafed flower has the ability to nurture a soul, but after prolonged contact with her soul, it was inevitable that it would be poisoned. If not for the dense spiritual energy and the earth vein spirit essence nourishing it and sustaining its life force, it would have died several days ago. A deep frown surfaced on Zhang Xian's face as he analyzed the situation. Wei Ruyan's poison soul constitution was simply a formidable ability. The fact that it could suppress even the innate fetal poison in his soul served as proof of its prowess. The 10-leafed flower was a saint herb that possessed the ability to nurture a deficient soul, but even it was powerless before such a formidable poison, thus resulting in its current state. Zhang Xian had been single-mindedly thinking about nurturing Wei Ruyan's soul to rouse her consciousness and treat her body that he had neglected the potency of her poison soul constitution. If the 10-leafed flower died, Wei Ruyan's soul would lose its binding to the world and dissipate swiftly. It was fortunate that Sun Chang had noticed it early, or else she could have lost her life just like that. I should take a look at how far her soul has been nourished first. Not daring to waste any time, Zhang Xian drew out his soul and observed the soul infused within the flower. A moment later, his expression turned livid. The nurturing of the 10-leafed flower could easily nurse even the weakest of souls back to perfect health within 10 days, but Wei Ruyan's poison soul constitution was simply too powerful. Putting aside how it had nearly poisoned the saint herb to death, it had also rendered its property to nurture souls nearly completely ineffective. In other words, Wei Ruyan's soul might have recovered slightly over the 10 days, but it was still in an extremely feeble state. It would take a lot more before she could regain her consciousness. At the current rate, if I wish to bring back her consciousness, I will require at least 100,000 10-leafed flowers. Zhang Xian clenched his fists tightly. Just to obtain this 10-leafed flower, he had caused a huge ruckus and nearly crippled the physician school for good. 100,000 10-leafed flowers. Where in the world could he find that many? It clearly wasn't feasible. It seems like I will have to try looking for a higher tier saint herb than the 10-leafed flower. Zhang Xian frowned. While the 10-leafed flower was a saint herb, it was of the lowest tier. To put it in terms of human cultivation realm, it was only at Saint 1 Dan. Naturally, its ability to counteract poison and its potency in nurturing souls would be weaker. If a higher tier saint herb was used, the effectiveness of the treatment could be increased significantly, and he wouldn't have to go through so much trouble as to gather a mountain of saint herbs. But it was so difficult to find even a stalk of a living 10-leafed flower in Hongyuan City. Could he really find a higher tier living saint herb that had the ability to nurture souls here as well? For the time being, I should return her soul to her body first. Knowing that it was futile to think about it at the moment, Zhang Xian instructed Sun Chang to carry Wei Ruyan's body over before drawing her soul out of the 10-leafed flower. The extracted soul still looked extremely weak. Even after it was returned to its body, Wei Ruyan showed no sign of regaining consciousness. Looking at the unconscious young lady before him, Zhang Xian rubbed his glabella. I should just forge the grand intermittence pill for the moment. By nourishing her body, her soul will be strengthened along with it, thus stabilizing her current condition. With that, I should be able to gain some time to find a higher tier Saint Herb. An affliction that could render innumerable 6-star physicians helpless, Wei Ruyan's condition was clearly not as easy to treat. Zhang Xian had thought that everything would fall into place once he found a living Saint Herb to nurture her soul, but reality had shown that his thinking was too naive. Putting everything aside, just the fact that her poisoned soul constitution could render most Saint Herb ineffective was a tough hurdle to overcome. Shaking his head grimly, Zhang Xian drew out his soul and transferred his soul essence to Wei Ruyan to nourish her soul, stabilizing her condition for the time being. After this was done, he heaved a sigh of relief. While the 10-leafed flower had failed to bring back Wei Ruyan's consciousness, it hadn't been completely ineffective. At the very least, it had pulled her back from the brink of death for the time being. As long as he could successfully forge the Grand Intermittence Pill and return vitality to her body, she should be able to last until he found a suitable Saint Herb to treat her. Young Master, Apothecary Lu, and the others have arrived. Sun Chang reported. Nodding, Zhang Xian tasked Sun Chang to take care of Wei Ruyan before heading to the main hall to meet Apothecary Lu and the others. As soon as Zhang Xian walked into the room, Apothecary Lu and the others hurriedly stood up and greeted him. Zhang Shi. There is no need to stand on ceremony. I believe you should know why I gathered you all here today. I need your help in forging a grade 7 Grand Intermittence Pill. Taking a seat, Zhang Xian got straight to the point. Even though they had an inkling of the reason when they made their way here, their faces still turned grim upon hearing those words. As 6-star pinnacle apothecaries, they were more than confident in forging any grade 6 pills. However, to forge a grade 7 pill, not to mention, they would have to collaborate with people they had never worked with before. It was simply too difficult. Zhang Shi, it is not that we are unwilling to help you, but we know our own limits, and we fear that we might not be able to reach your expectations. Apothecary Lu shook his head. They had to admit that Zhang Shi did possess an inconceivable talent for pill forging, but the Grand Intermittence Pill was one of the harder pills to forge even among grade 7 pills. It was impossible for them to succeed. Noticing the lack of confidence among the apothecaries, Zhang Xian reassured, there is no need to worry, and you need not feel pressured as well. As long as you follow my instructions strictly, there shouldn't be much of a problem. He could understand why they would feel apprehension at having to forge the Grand Intermittence Pill. The gap between each rank grew exponentially larger as one progressed up any occupation. Similarly, there was a huge gap between forging grade 6 pills and grade 7 pills. They had seen many of their peers devoting their lives to pill forging, only to never step through the final threshold. As such, it was unimaginable for them to forge the Grand Intermittence Pill, the difficulty of which ranked amid the top among grade 7 pills. But even so, I still don't think that we can do it. Apothecary Lu shook his head. All of us have tried many times to forge a grade 7 pill, but never have we succeeded before. On top of that, we don't have any experience collaborating with one another, so I fear that it is nigh impossible for us to succeed. The other apothecaries also shook their heads grimly. Seeing that the apothecaries had no confidence at all, Zhang Xian frowned. Skill wasn't everything to forging a good pill, one's spirit, soul, and essence must be in the right place as well. This was especially so for a pill like the Grand Intermittence Pill, which harnessed vitality so overwhelming that it could regrow broken limbs. If the apothecaries carried such a pessimistic attitude, even if they were to get all of the steps correct, they would still be unable to forge a proper pill. This was a problem of spirit and faith. This was similar to how in his 1-star apothecary examination, one of his invigilators, Apothecary Qin Shao, had managed to successfully forge tranquil heart pills in his pill debate, but due to his own condition, the pill harnessed a death aura, which not only rendered the pill ineffective but could cause one's cultivation to go berserk as well. A grade 7 pill would be Saint tier at the very least, which meant that it would possess a spirit of its own. If the apothecary forging the pill suffered from a lack of spirit, how could the pill forging be successful? Zhang Xian only had one set of medicinal herbs, so there would be no second chances. Failure was a luxury he couldn't afford. Since none of you have the confidence, then, pardon me. Seeing the state that the apothecaries were in, Zhang Xian knew that it would be difficult for him to make them regain their confidence anytime soon. However, he didn't have the time to spare at the moment. Thus, he flicked his wrist, and the pile of medicinal herbs fell to the ground. These were the medicinal herbs that the apothecaries had prepared and entrusted Sun Chang to pass to him. After which, he took a deep breath and began speaking. Let's get straight down to business. Here are the medicinal herbs. Apothecary Lu, extract the medicinal essence of the gold-silver berklover. Apothecary Chiu, process the true beard flower under low heat. Apothecary Lu. Zhang Xian issued instructions swiftly, and his words seemed to carry a unique rhythm to them, making it particularly pleasant to the ear. The apothecaries were intending on refusing Zhang Xian, but before they knew it, their bodies were already moving according to the other party's instructions. Impartation of heaven's will. Feeling how their bodies were moving against their will, the crowd narrowed their eyes in astonishment. No matter how slow they were, it was obvious that the young man before them had used impartation of heaven's will against them. But they were 6-star pinnacle master teachers, Saint Realm experts, and their soul depths could be considered among the highest in the Master Teacher Academy. Never had they thought that they would succumb to the impartation of heaven's will of another so easily. Even at the very least, his soul depth must have reached 21. They thought in shock. To be able to make so many of them fall under his impartation of heaven's will so easily, it meant that the other party's soul depth was significantly higher than theirs, very possibly reaching the level of a 7-star master teacher. For a 20-year-old freshman to possess a soul depth of 21. Such a genius was probably rare even within the sage clans. Perhaps, under the young man's leadership, they might just be able to produce a miracle. Chapter 849, Pill Mist. In the tattered elder hall of the Master Teacher Academy, Mu Shi and the others couldn't help but fall in a daze as they stared at the destruction before them. The elder hall had many years of history to it, and countless precious antiques and relics from the predecessors had been stored in it. But now, it had all been reduced to rubble. To be able to reduce the entire area to this state with just the aura he exuded, collapsing even the teacher acknowledgement hall, Yang Shi's prowess was too fearsome. Wei Ranxue couldn't help but remark, it seems like Zhang Shi's destructive capabilities were picked up from Yang Shi. The other school heads nodded in agreement with bitter smiles. Even though Zhang Shi had destroyed quite a few of buildings since his enrollment, they could tell that had happened due to a series of unfortunate coincidences, and it wasn't intentional. However, the matter with Yang Shi was different. In a fit of rage, the entire elder hall just abruptly collapsed under his wrath. That ability to destroy was clearly a level higher than Zhang Shi's. Tearing down walls and buildings without the slightest warning beforehand in the face of a disagreement. It was truly fortunate that they didn't hurt his student. If someone had really injured Zhang Shi, wouldn't Yang Shi tear down the Master Teacher Academy or even the entirety of Hongyuan City? It is really a blessing that there is a protective formation around the area which helped to conceal the destruction from the eyes and ears of others, and Yang Shi seemed to have held himself back as well, so the destruction isn't too widespread. Otherwise, the Master Teacher Academy would become the laughingstock for the entire Master Teacher Pavilion for years to come. Mu Shi said. Indeed. The others nodded in agreement. It was clear that Yang Shi had reigned in his immense strength, choosing to destroy only the Elder Hall, Teacher Acknowledgement Hall, and the buildings in the region in order to strike fear into their hearts. Otherwise, given the other party's incredible strength, if he had wished to see blood, putting aside just the handful of them present at the scene, it was questionable whether even the full force of the Qingyuan conferred Empire Master Teacher Pavilion would be able to stop him. Repair those buildings within a day, and send out news to the relevant powers in the region to inform them that the new principal has been chosen, and they are invited to attend the inauguration ceremony, Mu Shi instructed. The others nodded in acknowledgement to his instructions. Right. As for the matter regarding Yang Shi, since we are all master teachers, I believe that you should know what to do even without me saying so. As per the norm, make sure to seal your lips tight. Anyone who fails to do so will be punished according to the crime of betraying humanity. With his hands behind his back, Mu Shi's eyes swept through the crowd with a gaze as sharp as a knife. The whereabouts, appearance, and even students of a pinnacle master teacher like Yang Shi were considered to be confidential secrets of the master teacher pavilion. Juniors like them had no right to discuss such matters. Otherwise, if news were to leak to the enemies of the master teacher pavilion and some sort of mishap occurred, they would be unable to pay for their sins even if they were to die 1,000 times over. Mindful of the grave importance of the matter, the crowd nodded. Understood. After which, Mu Shi's pressurizing gaze fell upon Lu Feng. What about you, Lu Feng? Lu Feng had a grudge against Zhang Shi, and it was also due to Zhang Shi that he was going to suffer severe punishment from the master teacher pavilion. If he were to attempt to exact vengeance on Zhang Shi, it could potentially lead to dire consequences. It is my fault that the Elder Hall has been reduced to its current state. I will donate all my wealth to supplement the reparation cost for the destruction here. After which, I shall apply to become a guardian of the subterranean gallery. Lu Feng said. You wish to go to the subterranean gallery? Hearing this decision, everyone's faces darkened. Even school head Mo, who had a poor impression of Lu Feng, frowned upon hearing those words. Are you certain? I have been reflecting on my deeds, and I realized that in my pursuit to become the principal of Hongyuan Master Teacher Academy, I have lost sight of what I stood for originally. Perhaps, I might be able to rediscover myself in the subterranean gallery. Even if death lies at the end of this path, I have no regrets. Lu Feng nodded in determination. When he looked back at his past, he realized that his aim had changed at some point in time. He had not started out as a person hungry for power, but under the intense rivalry amid the 10 great master teachers and his desire to prove himself, the desire for the principal seat sparked in his mind, and before long, it had grown into a blazing flame. And like a moth attracted to a flame, he found himself sinking deeper and deeper into his desire. However, with Zhang Shi decided as the next principal, the flame that had blinded his eyes vanished, and as if a man awakening from a dream, he suddenly realized how ludicrous and shallow his actions had been. The reason Kang Shi established the Master Teacher Pavilion wasn't to bask in the respect and glory of it, nor was it to serve as a tool to vie for power and claim supremacy. It was to guard mankind and bring it to greater heights. But the allure of power was simply too difficult for any man to resist. Even the most steadfast of master teachers could stumble easily in its face and lose the faith they had held resolutely at the start of their journey. Since you have made such a decision, I will not report this matter to the headquarters for the time being and allow you to remain as a 6-star master teacher. However, I hope that you remember your promise. Don't let the Master Teacher Pavilion and yourself down anymore. Mu Shi said. Hearing that Mu Shi was willing to give him another chance, Lu Feng's eyes reddened in agitation. Thank you, Mu Shi. For a moment, he suddenly recalled the oath he had made when he first became a master teacher several centuries ago, and the surge of passion that he had felt back then ran through his old body once more. Following which, Mu Shi turned to school head Zhao and instructed, Zhao Bingxiu, you will be in charge of liaising with the powers and inviting them to the inauguration ceremony. Remember not to reveal the matter of Zhang Shi being the succeeding principal for the time being. He is still too weak at the moment, so it is necessary that we take such precautions to ensure his safety. Once he receives the principal's seal in the inauguration ceremony, there will be no need for us to worry about his safety anymore. Understood. Zhao Bingxiu nodded. As for Mo Zhu and Wei Ranxue, you will be in charge of keeping a lookout on the internal state of the academy. Take note of the atmosphere in the academy and make sure to quell any unnatural movements that might not be conducive to the inauguration ceremony. Mu Shi continued. However, halfway through his words, the ground suddenly began trembling, and a deafening blast reverberated from the distance. Hearing the explosion, Mu Shi narrowed his eyes. What happened? Along with the other school heads gathered in the Elder Hall, he immediately headed in the direction of where the explosion originated from. A short distance away from the academy, they saw an entire row of collapsed residences. It seemed like the explosion had originated from that area. Mo Zhu's eyes narrowed, and he exclaimed in astonishment, "Isn't that Zhang Shi's manor?" He had heard that King Huai had given Zhang Xian a manor, and he had looked into the matter as well. Naturally, he knew where the manor was as well. But this, why would it collapse out of the blue? It can't be that Zhang Shi, in a fit of anger, decided to destroy his own manor as well. Wei Ranxue gulped down a mouthful of saliva. It was said that just for the renovations, King Huai had spent hundreds of high-tier spirit stones. Yet, in an instant, that extravagant manor was reduced to rubble along with dozens of residences in the surroundings. This was an even greater tragedy than what had happened to the Elder Hall. They had known that wherever Zhang Xian went, destruction wouldn't be too far away, but to destroy his own manor as well. This was way too exaggerated. They had seen people going on a rampage and punching others, but they had never seen anyone going on a rampage and punching themselves. It doesn't seem like he has torn down his manor intentionally. Look! At that moment, Mu Shi abruptly pointed upward. Hong Long. As if in response to his words, a violent jolt suddenly occurred from the direct center of the area of destruction, and a seven-colored mist abruptly burst forth, illuminating the surroundings. This is Pill Mist. Pill Mist. Legend has it that it will only appear when a grade 8 pill is forged. The higher grade a pill is, the more potent it will be. Upon reaching a certain point, it has to suffer a backlash from the heavens as well. The pill mist is a form of heavenly tribulation that appears with the forging of grade 8 pills. Just what in the world is Zhang Shi forging? How could pill mist appear here? Upon taking a closer look at the form of the mist, the school heads immediately recognized what it was, and they nearly lost their sanity. Pill mist, just as the name suggested, was a phenomenon that occurred in the midst of the forging of a grade 8 pill. For it to appear, didn't it mean that Zhang Shi was attempting to forge a grade 8 pill? No, it isn't a grade 8 pill. If that were the case, there would be a tribulation within the pill mist, but the fact that it is absent means that it is highly unlikely that the pill forged has reached grade 8 yet. Nevertheless, there is no doubt that it is a grade 7 pinnacle at the very minimum, and the chances are that it is an inscribed pill as well. Otherwise, such a phenomenon wouldn't have occurred. Mu Shi said with a frown. He had once had the privilege of witnessing the formation of a grade 8 pill with his own eyes. Not only was there pill mist, even the apothecary himself had to undergo a lightning tribulation as well. Through the refinement of lingering lightning sparks, the pill would be further perfected, thus forming a sentient spirit within it. However, the fact that there was only the pill mist but no lightning tribulation meant that the grade of the pill forged hadn't reached the mark yet. A grade 7 pinnacle inscribed pill. Everyone's mouths twitched in astonishment. That was likely to be more valuable than most ordinary grade 8 pills. Pills could be classified into 4 tiers of quality: formation, satiation, perfection, and inscribed pill. Even within their academy, inscribed pill was a thing of the legends. Only very few apothecaries had achieved it in their lifetime. Yet, to think that Zhang Shi would manage to achieve this level of quality while forging a grade 7 pill. Was this for real? Let's go over to take a look. Unable to hold back their curiosity, the school heads hurriedly flew over. In Hongyuan Empire's royal palace, a middle-aged man was currently sitting before a golden table with a brush in his hand, browsing through memorials. The Emperor of Hongyuan Empire, Yu Fei's father, Yu Shenqing. He had a dense layer of jinqi shrouding around him, morphing into the forms of many beasts such as dragons and tigers, projecting an authoritative disposition that put others at bay. Even though he wasn't driving his cultivation, judging by the aura he commanded by itself, it seemed that Yu Shenqing possessed strength on par with school head Mo and the others, Saint Realm 1 Dan Pinnacle. A eunuch walked into the room and reported, "Your Majesty, we have completed the preparations for the banquet tonight." Putting down his brush, Yu Shenqing pinched his glabella before asking, "What did Fei say? Did she manage to invite Zhang Xian over?" "Reporting to Your Majesty, Her Highness says that Zhang Shi has received the invitation and that he will be here tonight," the eunuch reported. "That's good. I would love to see the young man who dares to make my daughter his maid." Yu Shenqing harumphed in displeasure. "Your Majesty, that Zhang Shi has caused quite a huge ruckus in the Master Teacher Academy, so he is likely to be a man with great capability. However, to make Her Highness his personal maid, he has indeed overstepped his boundaries," the eunuch said. "Indeed. I have doted on my daughter ever since she was born, and it pains me deeply to even chide or nag at her. And yet, he actually dared to take advantage of her. I sure would like to see how many heads that fellow has. I will make sure to teach him a lesson when he arrives later on so that he learns what humility is." Yu Shenqing's gaze turned cold. At that moment, the ground beneath him suddenly tremored violently. Frowning deeply, Yu Shenqing instructed, "What happened?" "Go and take a look." "Yes, Your Majesty." Hearing those words, the eunuch hurriedly rushed out of the palace. Not too long later, the eunuch returned with a bizarre look on his face. "Reporting to Your Majesty, it seems like Zhang Shi has destroyed the manor that King Huai gifted him." "He destroyed his own manor?" Yu Shenqing was taken aback. "That's right. That Zhang Shi. When he went to the blacksmith school collapsed. When he went to the physician school collapsed. When he went to the apothecary school collapsed. Now, when he returned to his own manor, even his manor collapsed. He really brings destruction wherever he goes," the eunuch remarked. "Brings destruction wherever he goes?" Yu Shenqing's mouth twitched. "This. Shall we cancel the banquet tonight then? Or, why don't we just cancel our invitation to Zhang Xian?" "No, that won't do. It would be a breach of etiquette if we were to cancel the banquet or our invitation abruptly. Since that's the case, help me invite Formation Master Wu over and have him set up a dozen fortification formations in case anything happens." "Yes, Your Majesty." The eunuch was slightly stunned for an instant before nodding and backing out from the palace. Chapter 850, Bodhi Saint Tree. When Mu Shi arrived at Zhang Xian's manor, they realized that Senior Byzantium Helios had wrapped everyone within his power, so no one had been injured in the catastrophe. At this very instant, Zhang Shi was standing before a towering cauldron, bellowing furiously. "What did you guarantee me before the pill forging? To be unable to withstand even the medicinal energy of a mere grade 7 pill, how can you have the cheek to call yourself a saint artifact? Saint artifact your head." He was indeed very infuriated by this incident. That fellow had promised him that it would have no trouble forging a grade 7 pill. That was the reason he had gone to the extent of using the impartation of Heaven's will to control Apothecary Lu and the others so as to guarantee that there were no mistakes in the steps at all. All of the medicinal herbs prepared were of excellent maturity, and there was no mistake whatsoever, so the pill was swiftly formed. Yet, in the instant that the pill was formed, it turned out that the one who would drag his feet wasn't Apothecary Lu and the others but the guardian saint artifact of the Master Teacher Academy, Golden Origin Cauldron. Unable to properly hold in the rampaging energies harnessed within it, the lid of the Golden Origin Cauldron abruptly burst open, resulting in the energies destroying everything in the area. It was fortunate that no one was injured, but his manor. It was gone just like that. I didn't know that you were going to forge such a potent pill either. Berated by Zhang Xian, the golden origin cauldron tried to explain itself indignantly. It was indeed a saint artifact, but it was a weapon cauldron and not a pill cauldron. Even though a formation had been cast over it to manage the temperature regulation, its physical structure still wasn't optimized for pill forging. Forging an ordinary grade 7 pill was already stretching its limits, but the pill that Zhang Xian was forging just had to be the grand intermittence pill. It was already a huge blessing that it wasn't blown to smithereens on the spot. If you had been able to hold on, that pill would have surely reached grade 8. Look, due to your error, the final product is only a grade 7 inscribed pill. What a huge waste of those precious medicinal herbs. Zhang Xian harumphed coldly. He knew that the golden origin cauldron couldn't be blamed for this matter, but he simply couldn't hold back his rage. One must know that there was a huge qualitative difference between a grade 7 inscribed pill and grade 8 pill. It was such a waste of Jiang Qingqin's phoenix timber core and the high-maturity medicinal herbs that the other old elders of the apothecary school had prepared for him. Grade 8? Grade 7 inscribed pill. On the other hand, after hearing those words, Apothecary Lu and the others finally understood what kind of pill they had just forged, and their bodies wouldn't stop trembling in excitement. Big brother, the grand intermittence pill is a grade 7 pill in itself. It is already an incredible feat to forge it to the level of an inscribed pill. There is no guarantee that 8-star pinnacle apothecaries would be capable of doing the same. And yet, you were thinking of forging it to the level of a grade 8 pill? Man, you are really about to break out of the atmosphere. Forget it. At the very least, the pill is fine. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to compensate for it even if I were to sell you off. After berating the golden origin cauldron one last time, he took a deep breath and released his anger before storing the pill in a jade bottle. After which, he finally noticed the presence of Mu Shi and the others. He clasped his fist and greeted, "Mu Shi, school heads." Recognizing the pill, Mu Shi asked, "To verify the matter, senior uncle, the pill that you have just forged, is it the grand intermittence pill?" "That's right." Zhang Xian nodded. To be able to forge the grade 7 grand intermittence pill to the point that pill mist is produced. Inconceivable. Truly inconceivable. Mu Shi exclaimed. The grand intermittence pill has the ability to regrow limbs. If it isn't inconvenient, may I ask why senior uncle is forging this pill? As a pill overflowing with vitality, the grand intermittence pill could heal even the most severe injuries and even induce the regrowing of limbs. It wouldn't be too far off to claim that the pill only fell short of bringing back the dead. Not to mention, the pill that Zhang Xian had forged was just a step away from reaching grade 8. It is to save a junior, Zhang Xian replied. After which, he gestured for the Byzantium Helios beast to bring Wei Ruyan over before taking out the jade bottle once more. Is this the person whom senior uncle hopes to save? Mu Shi frowned. That's right. Zhang Xian nodded. This young lady's body is currently too frail. I fear that your grand intermittence pill might be a little too potent for her current condition. The chances are that it could end up worsening her condition instead, Mu Shi said. As the common adage among physicians went, overnourishment kills the frail. Even for a Saint Realm 3 Dan expert like him, it would be difficult to absorb and assimilate the overwhelming medicinal energy contained within that grand intermittence pill fully, let alone an unconscious and frail young lady. Most likely, her body would be utterly destroyed by the overwhelming medicinal energy before it could work its wonders. It's not a problem. Zhang Xian waved his hands casually. He uncorked the jade bottle, and a dense surge of spiritual energy immediately gushed into the surroundings. In the next instant, a pill abruptly surged into the air, attempting to flee. At the level of a grade 7 inscribed pill, the grand intermittence pill possessed spirit, granting it the instinctive ability to avert danger. Even though it hadn't developed sentience yet, given sufficient time, it could develop sentience like the golden origin cauldron. If it were allowed to continue developing, a day might come when it could even morph into a human. Trying to flee. Come back. However, Zhang Xian seemed to have expected that the pill would react in such a manner. With a cold harumph, he abruptly closed his fists, and a surge of energy suddenly emerged from the pill itself, sealing its movements. Following which, the pill was forcefully pulled back to the ground by the surge of energy. Having gone through the books in the library of the apothecary school, Zhang Xian knew that grade 7 pills possessed such a property, so he had left a hand in advance. Using his Jinqi to support the Wei Ruyan's lower jaw, Zhang Xian opened her mouth and fed her the grand intermittence pill. Tzzzzzzzzzzzz. As soon as the pill entered her body, a sizzling sound reminiscent of searing metal coming in contact with iced water sounded. At the same time, Wei Ruyan's ghastly pale face gradually began to regain a healthy red glow. However, a short moment later, it stopped. At this point, even though Wei Ruyan seemed to be in a better state than before, she was still in a deep sleep, and there was no sign of her regaining consciousness. Zhang Xian quickly placed his fingers on the other party's pulse before heaving a sigh of relief. If it had been someone else, perhaps they might have succumbed to the overwhelming medicinal energy contained within the grand intermittence pill and died. However, Wei Ruyan was a unique case. Her unique constitution was so powerful that she could even poison a saint herb like the 10-leafed flower while unconscious. A grade 7 inscribed pill might contain immense medicinal energy within it, but most of it had turned into nutrients to feed her innate poison body. While the grand intermittence pill wasn't enough to cure her affliction entirely, it did help her body to recover to perfect health. Even the trauma that she had suffered back in her mother's womb had healed as well. With the recovery of her body, even if her soul remains unconscious for the time being, she shouldn't be in any danger. Zhang Xian thought. To still remain unconscious despite having consumed the grand intermittence pill. Senior uncle, what kind of affliction is this young lady suffering from? Mu Shi asked in astonishment. One must know that the grand intermittence pill was so potent that it would be difficult for him to bear it. It was one thing for a frail patient to be fine after consuming it, but for her to remain unconscious after that, the affliction she was suffering from sure was fearsome. On top of her frail physical body, her soul has suffered some damage as well. Even though her body has recovered with the consumption of the grand intermittence pill, her soul is still far too weak for her to regain consciousness, Zhang Xian explained. At that instant, he suddenly thought of something and asked, Mu Shi, do you know where I can obtain living saint herbs that can nurture souls? I need as many of those as possible. He didn't have any clue as to where he could find saint herbs to nourish Wei Ruyan's soul, but Mu Shi might know where he could source them. After a moment of contemplation, Mu Shi shook his head. I do know of a few places that sell saint herbs capable of nurturing souls, but all of them are dried. Living saint herbs. I really don't have any idea in mind. You don't know either? Zhang Xian sighed in disappointment. He could easily find dried saint herbs in the apothecary school and physician school as well, but it was a pity that those were useless for Wei Ruyan's current condition. For his treatment, the saint herb must be alive. At this moment, Zhong Dingchun, who was among the group of school heads who had gone over to check out the situation, abruptly spoke up. Zhang Shi, if you really require a living saint herb, I do know of one in Hongyuan City. As the head of the physician school, he maintained an intelligence network on medicinal herbs so that he could easily source them when he required them. Oh. Where is it? Zhang Xian asked anxiously. In the royal palace of Hongyuan Empire, there is a Bodhi saint tree. It is known to possess exceptional effectiveness in nurturing souls, Zhong Dingchun said. Bodhi saint tree? Zhang Xian frowned. He had never heard of such a tree before. Rumor has it that the tree was brought back from the wilderness by the ancestors of the current Hongyuan royal family. Knowing that it has the effect of nurturing souls, they chose to plant it in the royal palace to benefit the generations to come. This is the reason the royal offspring of Hongyuan Empire possess exceptionally powerful souls. After a moment of hesitation, Zhong Dingchun continued, however, the tree is one of the most important treasures of the royal family, so I fear that they might not be willing to lend it to you. I see. Stroking his lower jaw, Zhang Xian fell into deep thought. It happens that there is a banquet at the royal palace tonight. I should make use of the opportunity to take a look at the Bodhi tree and determine if it will be effective on Wei Ruyan first. If it is, it will be worth giving it a shot. Anyway, thank you for your advice, school head Zhong. Zhang Xian clasped his fist. There is no need to stand on ceremony, Zhang Shi. Zhong Dingchun hurriedly replied. After which, Zhang Xian tried asking for some more details regarding the Bodhi tree, but it seemed like the others didn't know much about it either. Thus, he could only shake his head helplessly. Zhang Shi, I will send some men to help you repair your manor, Zhao Bingshu said. It would be truly tragic if the future principal of the Master Teacher Academy were to be rendered homeless, and such publicity could have adverse effects on the inauguration ceremony 3 days later. I will be depending on you, school head Zhao. Zhang Xian nodded in gratitude. If only he'd known that such a mishap would occur in the forging of the Grand Intermittence Pill, he would have surely taken the others to a clearing to conduct the pill forging. At the very least, he wouldn't have ended up destroying his own residence. Zhao Bingshu nodded. After which, Mu Shi and the school heads bade farewell and returned to the Master Teacher Academy. It had already been afternoon when Zhang Xian first returned to his manor from the Saint Ascension platform. After which, he had attended the hearing at the Elder Hall and forged the Grand Intermittence Pill. Time passed swiftly, and unknowingly, the sun had already set, allowing darkness to permeate the sky. Looking at the rubble, Zhang Xian pondered for a moment before gently placing Wei Ruyan in the myriad ant hive and instructing Sun Chang, Wang Ying, and the others to spend their night at the residences in the Master Teacher Academy, which they were allocated as guest elders of the martial arts school. After this was done, he was just about to make his way to the royal palace to attend the banquet when something suddenly caught his eye, and he stopped in his tracks. His gaze swept across his surroundings, and he couldn't help but notice that the rubble around him seemed to be laid in a formation resembling a massive dragon prowling the grounds. Is this the Earth Dragon? Zhang Xian's eyes narrowed in astonishment. Looking at this formation, he couldn't help but recall the clue that he had obtained from Wu Yangzi regarding the location of his treasure. In his old residence, beneath 3 stars of the Earth Dragon. If what he was seeing before him was the Earth Dragon in the clue, then, what could the 3 stars be? Zhang Xian immediately turned his gaze upward. Countless stars scattered throughout the seemingly endless night sky came into sight. How am I to know which 3 stars Wu Yangzi is referring to? Zhang Xian frowned in frustration. All he had received from the clue was 3 stars of the Earth Dragon. There was no clue as to which 3 stars it was referring to, or even their general location. He might have found the Earth Dragon, but without the 3 stars, he wouldn't be able to pinpoint the location of the treasure. Was he supposed to overturn every inch of ground in the manor to find the treasure? Besides, if it was possible to find the treasure by doing so, it would have long been uncovered by someone else in the last 2,000 years. Thinking that it might be helpful to get a bird's eye view, Zhang Xian executed the red dust heaven ascending steps and leaped into the sky. The collapsed rubble seemed to meander on the ground, connecting with the dark sky at the horizon, as if a massive dragon that was on the verge of soaring into the heavens. Eye of Insight. Knowing that it was impossible to find it just like that, Zhang Xian activated his Eye of Insight before turning his gaze to the point where the Earth Dragon intersected with the dark sky. Chapter 851, Scarlet Firefly Fruit. At the point where the Earth Dragon and the dark sky intersected was a river that flowed along the walls of the academy and into the depths of the seemingly boundless darkness. Looking along the body of the Earth Dragon, there were several ponds with flowers and trees by the side. It resembled patches of clouds, which further accentuated the image of a dragon rising to the heavens. After studying the area for over 10 minutes, Zhang Xian's head was starting to spin from overusing his eye of insight. Shaking his head, he could only stop there. From what he had deduced so far, it seemed like the 3 stars Wu Yangzi had referred to weren't literal stars or a figurative description of the geography. It didn't seem like he would be able to figure out what it was with just a quick glance, and a more thorough investigation was required. Nevertheless, having found the Earth Dragon, he was already at the halfway mark to finding Wu Yangzi's treasure. As long as he were to put in some more effort, he should be able to find the 3 stars easily. After all, if Wu Yangzi was willing to reveal the location of his treasure, he would have hidden it with the expectation that someone would be able to find it. Thinking that he should head to the banquet first and continue his investigation after that, Zhang Xian was just about to descend back to the ground when he saw a figure in the distance flitting swiftly toward the manor. Hu Yaoyao. What is she doing here at this time? Zhang Xian muttered under his breath. The eye of insight could peer through the darkness, thus allowing Zhang Xian to recognize the other party immediately. However, it didn't seem like she had noticed him in the sky, bypassing him and rushing straight to a vantage point amid the rubble. Despite being a Chrysalis Realm Pinnacle expert, it still wasn't easy for her to find a person in the dark. Flicking her wrist, she took out a night illumination pearl and began scanning the area carefully. Zhang Laoshe, she shouted. As an apprentice, her relationship to Zhang Xian was reminiscent to that of a teacher and a student, so she had changed the way she addressed him accordingly. Zhang Xian was just about to descend back to the ground to reply to her call when he suddenly noticed something. The faint glow of the night illumination pearl in Hu Yaoyao's hand was reflected in a pond not too far away from where she stood, and from his point of view, it bore an uncanny resemblance to a star. Could it be? Zhang Xian's eyes lit up, and he hurriedly turned his gaze to the other ponds in the courtyard as well. As expected, as if resonating to one another, the faint radiance of the night illumination pearl was reflected in their surfaces as well. This addition to the formation created a picturesque sight of the Earth Dragon traversing across the night sky, journeying in the accompaniment of the stars. Over the past 2,000 years, the layout of the manor has gone through massive changes. Perhaps, at the very start, there might only have been 3 ponds. I will have to find the original 3 stars then. There should only be 3 stars according to the message left behind by Wu Yangzi. If the light reflected in the ponds were the stars mentioned in the clue, he had too many of them at the moment. However, this didn't necessarily mean that Zhang Xian's direction was wrong. Too long a time had passed, so the layout of the manor could have undergone numerous changes. Others might stumble before this problem, but this isn't an issue to me. Zhang Xian smiled confidently. It would be difficult for even Mu Shi to decisively determine which of the current 8 ponds were existent 2,000 years ago, but this was a piece of cake for Zhang Xian. With the eye of insight, he could easily tell how long each pond had been around for. In just a few moments, he had already confirmed which the 3 ponds he was looking for. After which, he swiftly mapped out the midpoint of the triangle formed by the 3 stars. The resulting location was a towering ancient pine tree positioned just in front of the manor's main hall. It seems like the treasure is hidden beneath the pine tree. Zhang Xian thought. Heaving a sigh of relief, Zhang Xian descended to the ground and walked up to Hu Yaoyao. You were looking for me. Zhang Laoshe, you are fine. I really didn't expect you to go so far just to find Wu Yangzi's treasure. Hu Yaoyao was visibly relieved for a moment after seeing Zhang Xian before gesturing to her surroundings speechlessly. Do you know how much this manor cost? If you do, how could you destroy it like that? Even if it is to find Wu Yangzi's treasure, surely you didn't have to reduce the manor to this state. Black lines streaked across Zhang Xian's face as he heard those words. I didn't do this to find the treasure. It was an accident. It can't be that you came here to watch the commotion after hearing that the manor has collapsed. And no, it's not that. I have something that I need your help on. Hu Yaoyao said. She had heard about the treasure that Wu Yangzi had left behind, but many of her predecessors had already attempted to find it, to no avail. Thinking that there was little hope in that direction, she had decided to not pay it any heed. "What's wrong?" Zhang Xian asked with a frown. While Hu Yaoyao was docile before him, she was still one of the most influential figures in the Master Teacher Academy, and she had many tricks up her sleeves as well. What kind of matter could it be that would require his help? Hu Yaoyao hesitated for a moment before speaking. To tell you the truth, Dong Xian, Long Sangyue, Shuizhenyang, and I have found a treasure that can increase the chances of making the breakthrough to half-saint by 20%. Naturally, we are planning to obtain the treasure, but there are two powerful beasts guarding it, and we aren't a match for them. Thus, we hope to seek your help for this matter. A treasure? Zhang Xian fell into deep thought. Back then, he had once followed Hu Yaoyao to a gazebo and overheard them speaking about some kind of treasure maturing by the end of the month, and looking at the current date, it did seem to be about time to harvest it. That's right. You possess both strength and knowledge, so we were unable to think of anyone more suitable to help us with this matter than you, Hu Yaoyao said. Even though the four of them were powerful figures who no one dared to offend in the academy, for some reason, all of them had stumbled before him. She had become his apprentice, Shuizhenyang had become his grand student, and Dong Xian, the most pitiful one of them, had not only become his great-grand student but was expelled from the academy as well. Long Sangyue, who had chosen not to take any action, was the sole survivor of their group. Typically speaking, considering how 3 out of 4 of them had some kind of grudge with Zhang Xian, they would be reluctant to seek his help. However, with that object's date of maturity swiftly approaching, they were pressed on time. They had to make a move soon or else those two huge fellows would have devoured it for themselves. By then, they would be left with nothing at all. Thus, after some serious discussion, they had eventually decided to seek Zhang Xian's help. That fellow might be the god of destruction, but he had proven that he was a capable individual on multiple occasions. Otherwise, the 3 of them wouldn't have been subdued by him either. To be able to increase the chances of making a breakthrough to half-saint by 20%, what kind of treasure is it? Zhang Xian asked curiously. Back at the Saint Ascension platform, he had seen many insights from the predecessors, and from that, he had gained a rough understanding of how difficult it was to make a breakthrough from Chrysalis realm to half-saint. To talents like that, 20% could make a huge difference. Under the dim light of the night illumination pearl, Zhang Xian could see Hu Yaoyao biting her crimson lips together hesitantly before saying, "It is the Saint Realm medicinal herb, the scarlet firefly fruit." Scarlet firefly fruit? Zhang Xian pondered for a moment before his eyes abruptly lit up. He had heard of the scarlet firefly fruit before. It was a saint herb with a scarlet exterior, and upon maturity, it would release a beautiful fluorescent light reminiscent of a firefly. Growing by absorbing sunlight and moonlight, the fruit had a maturity period of 100 years. On top of that, it was extremely rare and couldn't be artificially cultivated, thus making it very difficult to obtain. While consuming the scarlet firefly fruit wouldn't guarantee a breakthrough to half-saint, its ability to increase the chances at doing so was more than sufficient to make Chrysalis realm cultivators go insane over it. Even Zhang Xian was moved by its effects as well. Even though Zhang Xian's cultivation was only at ethereal treading realm primary stage at the moment, around 2 realms away from reaching half-saint, given his current rate of cultivation, as long as he had sufficient high-tier spirit stones and the relevant cultivation technique, he should be able to reach it within 6 hours. The compilation of insights from the Saint Ascension platforms had already greatly boosted his chances at making a breakthrough, and the aid of the scarlet firefly fruit could make his breakthrough go even more smoothly. For one, as a cultivator of the Heaven's Path divine art, the spiritual energy he required to make a breakthrough was enormous. While he did obtain quite a lot of earth vein spirit essence from the Cloud Mist Ridge, it was hard to tell if it would still be effective by the time he reached Chrysalis realm. After all, the earth vein spirit vine was still slightly lacking in purity. However, if he could obtain the scarlet firefly fruit, he could confidently say that Half-Saint was finally within sight. That's right. Based on our investigation, there is a total of 10 scarlet firefly fruits in the area. As long as you help us obtain them, we will split them equally among us, meaning that each of us will obtain 2 fruits. Hu Yaoyao said. 2 each. Zhang Xian stroked his lower jaw in contemplation before nodding slightly. I am fine with that. Given that he hadn't participated in the scouting and the preparation work, it was indeed not bad that he was going to receive an equal share. And of course, if he were to contribute more than proportionately to the obtaining of the scarlet firefly fruits later on, he could always renegotiate the distribution then. So, you will help us? Honestly speaking, Hu Yaoyao had thought that Zhang Xian would try to bargain for more favorable terms for himself, so she was slightly taken aback when she heard him agreeing to it so readily. Of course. Zhang Xian nodded. When are we setting off? We can set off now if you are ready. We will be riding on Dong Xian's tamed beast, and it will take roughly 3 days for us to arrive at our destination. So, even at the very minimum, our trip will take 7 to 8 days. Hu Yaoyao said. 7 to 8 days? Zhang Xian frowned. His inauguration ceremony as the next principal of the Hongyuan Master Teacher Academy was 3 days from now, so he couldn't afford to leave for such a long period of time now. That's right. We have made a rough calculation of when the scarlet firefly fruit will mature, but we will be arriving earlier to give us some leeway in case it matures earlier. However, if it matures later than we expected, we might end up spending a few more days there, Hu Yaoyao said. You are saying that the trip could be even longer than that? Didn't that mean that he might spend nearly half a month away from the academy? That was too long. He could potentially raise his cultivation to nascent saint in half a month. To waste it for a mere half-saint was not worth the time and effort. And most importantly of all, he would miss the inauguration ceremony as well. But the inauguration ceremony for the new principal of the academy is 3 days from now. If we leave now, we will definitely miss it, Zhang Xian said. I have heard of the matter, too. According to the rumors, the reason Mu Shi was sent to our academy was to nominate our next principal. I sure do wonder who our next principal is. I tried asking my teacher, but she refused to say anything about the matter. However, it should probably be either school head Lu or school head Zhao. They are the most respected elders in the academy, and they wield the greatest influence as well. Thus, the probability of them becoming the next principal should be the highest. At which, Hu Yaoyao smiled and reassured, don't worry, I have asked my teacher, and she has granted me the special privilege to skip on the inauguration ceremony to obtain the scarlet firefly fruit. Besides, Zhang Laoshi, you aren't a student of the academy now, so it shouldn't matter to you who becomes the next principal of the academy, right? As the leader of the bewitching devil faction, she had heard about the conflict between school head Lu and Zhang Xian, and how the latter had been kicked out of the academy. Given that Zhang Xian wasn't even considered a student of the academy anymore, it shouldn't matter to him who became the next principal. Naturally, he should have nothing to do with the inauguration ceremony. A bitter smile surfaced on Zhang Xian's lips. It just so happened that he did have a role to play in the inauguration ceremony, and a huge one at that. You should quickly make your decision. The scarlet firefly fruit will be maturing in the next few days, so we have to set off as soon as possible. Hu Yaoyao urged. After a moment of contemplation, Zhang Xian proposed, since that's the case, let's set off straight later in the night then. However, instead of riding Dong Xian's tamed beast, I suggest that we ride on mine. We should be able to make a round trip within a day with that. He still had to attend the banquet at the royal palace to determine whether the Bodhi Saint tree could be used to save Wei Ruyan or not before heading out. Considering Dong Xian's current cultivation realm, her tamed beast should also be at Chrysalis realm at the very most, so the speed of travel wouldn't be too fast. However, If they were to ride on Byzantium Lad, they should be able to cover the 3 days' journey within half a day. That would save them quite a bit of time. Your tamed beast? You mean your great violet-wing beast? Hu Yaoyao frowned. But its speed is likely slower than Dong Xian's tamed beast, right? You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.